Chapter 4509. Complete Level 9 Universe Night? Finally. I'm going to break through to the true Eternity Lord level. Yi Xian muttered to himself as he forced himself to calm down. Then he closed his eyes again. He didn't have much time left. If there were no accidents, that Universe Supreme would arrive within 2 days at most. Although Yi Xian had the Shen Nong Cauldron to protect him and had nothing to fear, if he delayed for too long, it was inevitable that something unexpected would happen. If he could complete this breakthrough before the other party arrived, it would naturally be the best-case scenario. Xiao xiao xiao. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Rays of light shot out and floated in front of Yi Xian. They were still all the cultivation resources he took out from the undying world within his body. However, this time, other than the 9-colored godly medicine and a large amount of resources, such as the all-evil origin liquid, the most important thing was a level 26 Eternity Lord level pill. After consuming this level 26 Eternity Lord level pill, Yi Xian only had 11 Eternity Lord level pills left. However, it was still enough. After doing all this, Yi Xian activated the domain of the Shen Nong Cauldron. After compressing all the resources to the size of an infant fist, he swallowed them into his stomach with a wave of his hand. Hualala! The sound of chains covering the sky and earth rang out from within his body. This time, although there was only one shackle that appeared, it was much thicker than before. After all, this time, he was breaking through to the next major realm between Universe Knight and Universe Master. Neck. Yi Xian focused and activated the energy river that had just formed within his body. He began to circulate great circulatory cycles in his meridians to accumulate power. The expected pain came quickly. The impact of the bottleneck of a major realm was much more intense than the impact of an ordinary small realm. However, to Yi Xian it was still nothing. He had long since gotten used to it. Time passed slowly. Under Yi Xian's wholehearted focus and full power circulation, this time, it only took him a day and a half to completely refine the great river of energy in his body. Yi Xian only needed one attack to break this incomparably thick shackle. When the shackles were completely broken, the anticipated system notification rang out in Yi Xian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for achieving a breakthrough in the ancient Dongshu formula. Current level. First level Universe Master. Ding! Congratulations to host. You have achieved a breakthrough in your physical body's Qi and blood realm. Current level. First level Universe Master. A Universe Master. The breakthrough this time was a great leap forward. It had undoubtedly increased Yi Xian's battle prowess greatly. Previously, his original body's cultivation base had been at the 9th Order Venerable Realm. Once he activated the power of the ancient demon ape's bloodline, he would be able to ascend to the 1st Order Eternity Lord realm. And if he were to use the 9 changes of demon ape and reach the 9th change, his battle prowess would immediately soar to the 1st Order Universe Supreme realm. But now, with the completion of this breakthrough, Yi Xian would instantly possess the power of a 2nd Order Universe Master after activating the bloodline power of the ancient demon ape. If he were to use the bloodline power of the 9 changes of demon ape again, he would directly enter the 9th change. His power would be equivalent to that of a 2nd Order Universe Supreme realm. Adding in the terrifying energy and blood within his enormous body that was 60 million kilometers long under the 9th transformation, Yi Xian's true combat strength was basically on par with a universe sovereign at the 3rd step. In other words, no one below the level of a middle-stage Universe Supreme could do anything to him. If there were no accidents, any Universe Supreme being at the level of an initial stage would either be annihilated or forced to flee in embarrassment when they encountered him. This was because as long as Yi Xian executed the Blood Sea secret technique and activated the power of his body, he would be able to instantly split himself into 3. With the same power level, he would be able to crush his opponent. Calculating the time, these 2 breakthroughs have taken almost 3 days. This means that the so-called Universe Supreme Realm Supreme should be arriving soon. After calming down, Yi Xian's eyes flashed coldly. As he muttered to himself, he had already rushed out of Shen Nong Cauldron. Xiao! With a wave of his hand, the cauldron transformed into a ray of light and rushed directly into his body. Immediately after, Yi Xian raised his head to look at the horizon as he muttered once more, I wonder what kind of power the Eternity Lord Tribulation possesses. However, all of my aura is currently restrained and not emitted, so the lightning tribulation has yet to arrive. This was expected. A thunder calamity was bound to arrive when a Great Order Universe Supreme Realm breakthrough. Although there was no existence like the primeval heaven's eye in this primordial chaos void, the law of space operation here was perfect and complete. Because of this, the thousands of nests that gave birth to chaos demon gods and the entire vast Milky Way starfield were enveloped by an invisible force of primordial chaos law. Even the supreme beings of the primordial chaos era and the supreme beings of the primordial chaos era couldn't break through and force their way in. One could see a thing or two after entering. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi Xian had already realized this, he would have immediately concealed his aura before he rushed out of the Shengnong cauldron. He wouldn't have leaked the slightest bit of it. At this moment, he would probably be undergoing the Eternity Lord tribulation. Of course, Yi Xian had never been interested in the Thunder Calamity. He wasn't afraid and even looked forward to it. This was because every time he experienced the baptism of the Thunder Calamity, he would be able to completely stabilize the level of cultivation he had just broken through. Solidify. But this time, a great enemy was about to arrive. He had other plans for the upcoming Eternity Lord Calamity. After a short while, as long as I reveal a little bit of my aura, the Eternity Lord Calamity will arrive immediately. Unfortunately, it's only an Eternity Lord Calamity after all. It won't cause any harm to the universe supremacy who's about to arrive. However, it's not a bad idea to take advantage of this opportunity to confuse the enemy and set up an ambush. After saying this, he immediately activated the Perfect Oscillation Spiritual Force secret technique and concealed his body. His aura was concealed again, and he disappeared from the spot in an instant. Not a single trace of his aura could be sensed. At the same time, in the universe void tens of billions of miles away from this intermediate supreme forbidden area, a ball of light was rapidly approaching. This ball of light was dark yellow, and the aura it emitted far surpassed that of a universe master. This was clearly a powerful universe supremacy. Within this dark yellow ball of light, one could vaguely see a smaller black ball of light. It was the late-stage Eternity Lord who had taken the initiative to ask for reinforcements. Tens of billions of miles of void wasn't a short distance, but to a universe supremacy, it was nothing. After a short while, this huge dark yellow ball of light plunged headfirst into this intermediate supreme forbidden area and arrived at the bloody battlefield. In the void where the battle had taken place. Immediately after, on the right side of where Yi Xian was hiding, it came to an abrupt stop. Chapter 45:10. What happened here? The moment he rushed out of the dark yellow light, a shocked exclamation came from within the black light. This late-stage universe lord was completely dumbfounded. If it weren't for the fact that he could still see a large amount of shattered star fragments in the distant void 10 billion miles away and the thick smell of blood in the air, he would have suspected that he had come to the wrong place. 3 days ago, he had left this place to ask for reinforcements. Now that he had returned, it had only been 3 days, and everything had changed greatly. That former god cauldron that was even larger than a star had disappeared. That freakishly talented space-raging ape was gone. Even the 6 late-stage universe lords who had surrounded the cauldron when he had left were gone. Damn it, these bastards. They surrounded me for a few days and still couldn't think of a way to deal with that raging ape. Now, after being stunned for a few moments, the being within the black light let out a furious roar. But now it's only been 3 days since I left. Only 3 days, and not only did they get rid of the raging ape, they even cleaned up the battlefield and left calmly. The bloody battlefield within a radius of 10 billion miles is so clean that it's like a dog licked it. This is clearly to erase all traces. They want to cut off the rhythm of this Supreme Lord's pursuit. This is simply too much. Long. Just as the late-stage universe lord within the black light flew into a rage, a series of earth-shattering rumbles came from the universe void 10 billion miles away to his left. Turning his head to look, he saw a dense and jet-black tribulation cloud gathering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than half a breath, there was already an area of over 100 million kilometers high in the sky that was completely filled with jet-black tribulation clouds. Right at that moment, a space-raging ape with a height of about 30 meters appeared below the region shrouded by the clouds. The aura emanating from its body was that of a first-level universe master. This raging ape had clearly just broken through, which was consistent with the sudden arrival of the universe lord Thunder Calamity. No matter who saw it, they would not have the slightest bit of suspicion. At this moment, when the raging ape entered his sight, the late-stage universe knight within the black light was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He had originally thought that the raging ape had been dealt with by the beings within the 6 light balls in just 3 days. But now, It seemed that the truth was the opposite. It wasn't the raging ape that had been dealt with, but the beings within the 6 light balls. Those were 6 universe masters, and all of them were late-stage universe masters. There were even 2 universe masters who were half-supreme masters at the pinnacle of the 9th level. Even if not all of them had perished, and there were still some who had managed to escape, this ferocious ape, with its own strength, was able to accomplish this in a short 3 days, and this was still enough to shock everyone. Oh no, in just 3 days, he hadn't done all's raging ape. If he remembered correctly, when he left 3 days ago, the strength of this ferocious ape was only at the peak of the 9th order venerable realm. But now, looking at his body shape, it was obvious that he hadn't activated that mysterious bloodline ability. Even so, this raging ape's power had leaped from the pinnacle of the 9th level to the 1st level of the Universe Master. What did this mean? It meant that he had broken through again. In just 3 days, he had dealt with the 6 late-stage Universe Masters, and he had even taken the opportunity to make a breakthrough, and it was a breakthrough that had leaped a great realm. If those 6 fellows hadn't been killed by him, would they have been killed by him? Moreover, counting from the beginning to the end, this fellow had actually broken through 3 times in a short period of less than 10 days since they'd first besieged him. Moreover, this included a breakthrough that allowed him to surmount an entire realm. This was simply too frightening. If he didn't kill him today, in a few years, wouldn't he grow to the level of a great being from the primordial era? These thoughts flashed through his mind. At this moment, the killing intent of the late-stage Eternity Lord that was hibernating within the black ball of light towards Yi Xian instantly rose to the extreme. However, just as this strand of killing intent surfaced in his heart, a flash of inspiration flashed through his mind, and his entire body instantly trembled a couple of times. The situation wasn't right. This fellow had a powerful bloodline ability. Once it was activated, it could instantly increase his power by a great realm. There was no doubt about this. It wasn't like he hadn't seen it with his own eyes before. In other words, he was now a 1st-level Universe Master. If he were to activate that mysterious bloodline power, wouldn't he become a 1st-level Universe Supreme Master in an instant? This was already the same level of cultivation as the person he had invited this time. However, once this ferocious ape activated that mysterious bloodline secret technique, its body would instantly expand to 60 million kilometers in size. At that time, with the support of the terrifying blood and chi energy in this enormous body, its cultivation strength would still be able to increase. His power would increase by a small level. In other words, once Bao Yuan activated that mysterious bloodline technique, his true combat power would directly soar to the level of a 2nd-level Universe Supreme. And the existence that he had invited was merely a level 1 ultimate universe realm expert. He wasn't a match for him at all. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, they became clearer and clearer. The existence of the black ball of light caused his entire body to tremble violently. It even affected his body. The black ball of light that covered everything also started to sway slightly. Even his voice was trembling. Night N, this raging ape's power has broken through, and he's now a Universe Master. We're no match for him at all. Why don't we retreat? While he's going through the Universe Master Thunder Trial, we should still be able to make it. Howl! Are you out of your mind? Hearing his voice, within the dark red light ball beside him, a harsh voice was heard. He's only a 1st-level Universe Master. Don't forget, you're a 7th-level Universe Master. Just as well. While he's going through the Universe Master Thunder Trial and hasn't used the Farmer God Cauldron to defend himself, this is the best chance to kill him. Don't worry. After killing this raging ape, I'll take the Farmer God Cauldron first. As for the other treasures, you guys can pick first. Howl! Raging ape, you little rascal, give me your life. After the last sentence was said, within the dark red light ball, there was another shocking roar that was filled with endless excitement. With a flash, it shot toward the land of the Thunder Trial that was close to 10 billion miles away. Chapter 45:11. Crack! An ear-piercing crisp sound rang out, and the tribulation clouds in the sky instantly surged even more violently. After a short breath of time, an incomparably thick bolt of purple-gold lightning smashed down. As this bolt of lightning struck down, the dark tribulation clouds that covered an area of hundreds of millions of miles instantly dissipated. Although there was only one bolt of Eternity Lord Thunder Tribulation, its power was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. It surpassed any of the lightning tribulations Yi Xian had experienced before. There was no comparison at all, and it emitted an endless aura of destruction. However, Yi Xian was still fearless in this regard. After curling his lips, his figure flashed and he directly rushed towards the terrifying tribulation clouds that covered the endless void above his head. Screech! At this moment, under the agitation of his emotions, the violent ape let out a long howl. He did not dodge, and instead, his figure shot out amidst the howl. In the blink of an eye, he entered the tribulation lightning and was completely submerged. Rumble! The scene in front of him was too shocking. Within the incomparably vast purple-gold tribulation clouds, terrifying explosions continued without end. The vast expanse of space within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles was completely enveloped by the exploding purple-gold sea of lightning. Even the space was trembling slightly, as if it could collapse at any moment. Although it was only a single wave of tribulation lightning, it wreaked havoc for nearly 10 breaths of time. At this time, the vast sea of lightning above his head had long since disappeared. The vast expanse of space within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles was thus cleared. Swish! As the entire sea of lightning disappeared, a faint sound of breaking through the air could be heard. In the next moment, the violent ape walked out from the void high up in the sky. However, there was not the slightest wound on its precious body. It was shining brightly and emitted an endless aura of the Eternity Lord. It was also at this moment that an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from the void of the universe nearly 10 billion miles away. Roar! Violent ape, hand over your Shennon cauldron, and this sovereign can leave you with an intact corpse. This divine sense voice came from the dark red ball of light that was emitting the aura of a supreme being. It gave off an incomparably clear feeling of a lofty mountain. It was full of a sense of superiority, as if the ruler of the heavens was overlooking the masses. Yi Xian turned his head to look. When he saw that the other party was only a first-order universe supreme, he immediately grinned. The disdain and ridicule in his words were not concealed at all. Oh, is that so? Then let's see if you have the ability. Following this divine sense voice that was filled with endless disdain came out from the mouth of the ferocious ape. In the next instant, it raised its head and let out a furious roar. Roar! 9 demonic ape. 9th transformation. Along with this roar, the space ape, the violent ape, its body. In the blink of an eye, its body, which was originally only 30 meters tall, had completely expanded in less than a breath's time. Its speed was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The power in its body was rolling like a roaring river, and its limbs and bones were surging with endless ferocity. Unknowingly, there was also an unimaginably majestic and terrifying aura that spread out. At the same time, as its body expanded, the aura of cultivation that spread out from the violent ape's body also rose rapidly. In less than half a breath's time, it had soared from a first-level universe master to a second-level universe supreme in the blink of an eye. Previously, although Yi Xian had activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body and raised his cultivation by 1 level to become a second-level universe master, he had deliberately concealed his cultivation by 1 level. After all, he was undergoing the lightning punishment of an Eternity Lord, and the power of a first-level universe master was more appropriate for the situation. Now that he had unleashed the 9th transformation of the 9 devilish ape transformations bloodline ability, this concealed cultivation base was instantly revealed. On top of that, his combat prowess had been enhanced by an entire major realm through the 9th transformation. Now, he had reached his current pinnacle state in an instant. He had become a universe knight at the level of level 2. Moreover, due to his body size reaching 60 million miles, the power of blood and vitality was simply too majestic and abundant, and it had boosted his cultivation by 1 level. Therefore, the current Yi Xian's combat power was already comparable to a 3rd-level universe supreme. Seeing this scene, the dark red light ball that was shooting over from afar came to an abrupt halt midway in the void space. Within the light ball, a voice that was filled with endless astonishment cried out at the same time. What? A 2nd-level universe master? In an instant? His cultivation has skyrocketed by 1 level? How is this possible? It was no wonder that he was so shocked at this moment. Previously, when the 7th-level universe master hibernating within the black light ball went to ask him to come out and help, he didn't reveal the fact that the target, the violent ape, had a terrifying bloodline technique. He had only said that the raging ape possessed a Shennon cauldron, and it was now trapped. However, the defensive power of the treasured cauldron was too strong, so even Eternity Lords were unable to break through it. Thus, they needed to request the help of a Universe Supreme. After all, as a Universe Supreme, since he had intervened in this matter, then no one else would want to get their hands on the Shen Gnome Cauldron. The existence in the black ball of light thought that it was only asking him to help and easily suppress the violent ape. Such a primordial treasure of the primordial era as a reward was more than enough. As for the mysterious and powerful bloodline technique in the violent ape's hands, although he didn't mind sharing it with this powerful Universe Supreme, he was worried that this Universe Supreme would immediately leave after capturing the violent ape after learning of this matter, leaving them to draw water with a bamboo basket. All for naught. After all, the smaller the range of this kind of heaven-defying bloodline technique, the more advantageous it would be for him. The few Universe Masters didn't have the ability to restrict this matter, but this Universe Supreme could. If he really had such thoughts, he might really do it. It was precisely because of this concern and consideration that the hibernating being within the black light ball concealed this point, which caused the Universe Supreme within the dark red light ball to be so shocked to see such a scene occur. What? He's actually a second-level Universe Supreme? If that's the case, then this violent ape's true combat power is already comparable to a third-level Universe Supreme? Just as this first-level Universe Supreme came to an abrupt halt and let out a cry of shock, in the universe void 10 billion miles away, the black light ball that had been hovering in the distance and didn't dare to approach at all, let out another cry of shock. Although he knew that the violent ape had a terrifying bloodline technique that, once activated, could immediately raise his cultivation level by a whole realm, he didn't know that after Yi Xian activated the violent ape bloodline in his body, he could actually raise his cultivation level by a small level. Therefore, he previously estimated that the violent ape's peak combat power was a first-level Universe Supreme, comparable to a second-level Universe Supreme. Just like that, the first-level Universe Supreme he invited was already no match for the violent ape. Not to mention the violent ape's true combat power had now become a second-level Universe Supreme, comparable to a third-level Universe Supreme? Chapter 45:12. Now you want to run? What were you doing earlier? Seeing that the black light was trying to escape, Yi Xian's voice came from the mouth of the raging ape. Xiao. With a cold glint in his eyes, Yi Xian didn't hesitate any longer. With a faint sound of breaking through the air, he disappeared from where he was in the blink of an eye. When it appeared again, it was already in front of the black ball of light, completely blocking its escape route. Immediately after, without waiting for the other party to react, the incomparably enormous right fist of the violent starry sky ape suddenly smashed out. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion in the void space. The later stage Eternity Lord hiding in the black light didn't even have the chance to make a sound before his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood-green mist. As soon as it spread out, Yi Xian waved his hand and sent it into the Shen Gnome Cauldron inside his body, where he started to condense the blood essence. Now, he had a total of 12 blood essences of Eternity Lords in his hands. Of the 10 Universe Masters in the small circle of Eternity Lords who had been thinking about him, including Blood Sea Master, other than the pinnacle Eternity Lord who had escaped previously, the other 9 had all been annihilated. Of course, Yi Xian wouldn't let go of the one who had escaped. Now, his strongest combat power had reached the level where he could stand shoulder to shoulder with a third-stage Universe Supreme. If he went straight to that guy's lair, he could kill him instantly. However, this wasn't a matter of urgency. Although the last later-stage Eternity Lord in the Black Light had been annihilated, there was still a first-stage Supreme beside him. Xiao. Almost at the same time Yi Xian turned his head to look at the dark red ball of light. An incomparably sharp sound of something tearing through the air suddenly came from that direction. The scene that fell into his line of sight almost shocked Yi Xian to the point that his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. That gigantic dark red light with a diameter of 10 million miles was actually fleeing at an extremely fast speed. This was clearly the rhythm of an escape. Those who could cultivate to the level of Universe Supreme were naturally not fools, and they definitely weren't impulsive people. Right now, Yi Xian's power and cultivation level had already formed a crushing force. Even if he was unwilling, so what? Was it more important than his own life? You sure are straightforward. However, as a Jizuan realm expert, if you can't even withstand a single blow from him, wouldn't it be a little too embarrassing for you to turn around and flee? Seeing the other party running away, Yi Xian's figure flashed, and he immediately turned into a ray of light and chased after him. As he chased, he also sent out a voice with his divine sense, trying to tempt him. How about this? I won't bully you. One of the levels of my third-order supremacy battle prowess is supported by the boundless energy and blood in my huge body. If worst comes to worst, I'll just shrink my body and not use this level of vitality to boost my combat strength. That should be fine, right? After saying that with a thought from Yi Xian, His terrifying figure that was 60 million kilometers long instantly shrunk to around 10 million kilometers. It was roughly the same size as the dark red ball of light that was escaping at top speed. PFFF. What made him extremely gloomy was that he had taken the initiative to shrink his body and give up the one-level boost that the energy and blood in his huge body provided to his cultivation level. Now, Yi Xian's true combat strength had already fallen between the third-order supremacy and the second-order supremacy, and he was even closer to the second-order supremacy. However, not only did the dark red light that was fleeing at top speed not stop, but it also seemed to be in a rage, and there was a faint sound of blood spurting out of its mouth. At this very moment, the Universe Supreme that was hibernating within the dark red light was having a mental breakdown. When had a Jizuan realm expert ever been ridiculed like this? The fellow chasing after him was too infuriating. Even if he gave up the one-level boost that the energy and blood in his huge body provided to his cultivation level, he still had the combat strength of a second-order supremacy. He was still one level stronger than him, and he still had the cheek to say that he wouldn't bully him? Besides, the one-level combat strength that he gave up could be recovered at any time during a great battle, right? He actually wanted to use such a trick to deceive him. How shameless! These thoughts flashed through his mind. Not only did the dark red light not slow down, but it also suddenly increased its speed. In the blink of an eye, it had already rushed out of the border of this intermediate supreme forbidden area. Xiao! Almost in the next instant, an extremely sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out in the starry sky at the border of the forbidden area. The raging ape, whose body had shrunk to about 10 million miles in size, rushed out and chased after the dark red light that was fleeing at top speed. There was only a little more than 200 million miles between them. It was only a distance. Hey, the one in front, do you still have any shame? A Jizuan Realm Supreme is actually like a stray dog. Isn't this too degrading? Seeing that the other party was unmoved, Yi Xian was also depressed. It was not easy for him to become a Jizuan Realm Supreme. Originally, he could immediately fight to his heart's content with a powerful Jizuan Realm Supreme, but he didn't expect to meet such a coward. This was simply a disgrace. As he thought of this, the anger in Yi Xian's heart immediately surged. Xiao! With a flip of his palm, a big-headed black rod instantly appeared in the right hand of the giant ape. It was transformed from the Shen Nong medicinal pestle that was compatible with the Shen Nong cauldron. The moment the big-headed black rod appeared, the raging aura within the raging ape's body suddenly skyrocketed by 30%. He used this big rod too well, and it had long become a habit. Now that he held it in his hand, the feeling instantly came. At this moment, Yi Xian's figure was a giant raging ape that was 10 million miles in size, and the big-headed black rod in his right hand was 10 million miles in length. It was incomparably thick and solid. After all, it was a primordial supreme treasure, and it had long disappeared after being used by Yi Xian many times. A ferocious aura had accumulated in its form, and at this moment, it was invisibly seeping out. It was simply impossible to look at it directly, and it made one's heart palpitate with fear. At this moment, the existence in the dark red light that was fleeing in front suddenly had a feeling that there was a dagger at its back. With a bad feeling in his heart, he subconsciously turned around to take a look. It was this glance that instantly made his soul scatter. A big-headed black rod, emitting a murderous aura that made one's hair stand on end, was smashing towards him from behind, covering his head. Although there was still a distance of about 200 million miles between him and the raging ape, the big-headed black rod was a primordial supreme treasure. With Yi Xian's current cultivation and strength, the rod could still hit him from such a distance. Bang! Almost in the next moment, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The big-headed black rod ruthlessly smashed into the dark red light ball, causing the flames of the light ball to shake violently a few times. Puff! At the same time, a dull light sound clearly came from within the dark red light ball again. This was the sign that the existence that was hibernating in the light ball had been hit by the rod. It was probably not light, and most likely had already vomited blood. Looking at this situation, even if it was not a serious injury, it was definitely a light injury. Oh. Chapter 45:13. Yi Xian had guessed correctly. Or perhaps, the being within the black light was howling too loudly, thus exposing itself. Within the light, there was indeed a wolf beast, and it was a greedy wolf. Although its bloodline was not pure, compared to the sub-blood greedy wolf that Yi Xian had killed before, it was much purer. It was estimated that the bloodline of a true primordial greedy wolf was as pure as the bloodline of a true primordial greedy wolf. The difference would not be too great. Oh woo! At this moment, as Yi Xian swung the big head black rod and smashed it onto the black ball of light, the greed wolf within the ball of light raised its head and let out a long howl. The black ball of light that originally enveloped its body shook violently and gradually became unstable. Finally, it collapsed with a boom. The black light collapsed, revealing the appearance of the being hibernating within. This was a blood-colored greedy wolf without a single strand of mixed hair. Perhaps, it would be more appropriate to call it a blood-colored greedy wolf. At that moment, this blood-colored greedy wolf was obviously not in a good state. Its face was ferocious and filled with resentment, and there was a huge bump on its head. As its body was at least 10 million miles long, the bump on its forehead was caused by the big-headed black stick. Its size was practically the size of a shooting star. It was simply a ghastly sight to behold. Howl. Ferocious ape, what are you trying to do? At that moment, as its body was revealed, the speed of this blood-colored greedy wolf did not decrease at all. It was still extremely fast. As it fled into the void space ahead, it turned its head and roared at Yi Xian, who was chasing behind it. Its expression and tone were filled with grief and indignation. There is no enmity between us, so why are you clinging on to me and not letting me go? You are simply unreasonable. Reasonable? Did you King reason with this Star Master when you first arrived? Yi Xian looked at it with disdain and ridiculed the blood-colored greedy wolf mercilessly. Previously, when you saw that this Star Master was only a first-stage universe master, weren't you King arrogant? Jumping and jumping, you wanted to rush over and open your mouth to rob. Now that I see that your cultivation level is lower than mine, you know how to reason with this Star Master. Howl. I'm sorry, but the violent ape clan has never been reasonable. Xiao. After saying the last sentence, Yi Xian didn't hesitate any longer. He raised the violent ape's right arm, swung the shocking big-headed black stick over his head, and fiercely smashed it down again. An extremely sharp sound of the air being torn apart resounded, accompanied by the cracking sound of space shattering inch by inch. The black stick that was as huge as a star carried an unstoppable supreme might as it smashed forward with a loud bang. Boom! An earth-shattering boom rang out. Seeing this staff smash down, the scarlet greedy wolf, which had already tasted what it was like, shuddered in fear. Its running speed suddenly increased. Unfortunately, it was still a little too late. As his body suddenly leaped forward, although the club did not hit his head, it hit the back of the left side of the scarlet greedy wolf's thigh. A heart-wrenching pain came, and the blood-greedy wolf howled at the sky again. A huge bump appeared on its left thigh, and it was a shocking sight. A woo! Bao Yuan, you've gone too far. That strike of yours almost crippled me. The scarlet greedy wolf roared, and it was so angry that it almost spat out blood. He turned his head around and fiercely glared at Yi Xian. His figure, which was originally charging forward, suddenly changed directions and shot towards the left in an oblique manner. At the same time he said something that sounded like a warning. Violent ape, don't forget that your cultivation level is only increased by some kind of secret technique. I don't believe that you can maintain this level of cultivation forever. Even if that's the case, it doesn't matter. This is the Hongmeng Void, the forbidden land of the Milky Way star domain. There are many powerful forbidden lands and star domains on both sides of the Milky Way. You're only a beginner universe supreme, and you haven't reached the level where you can do whatever you want. Don't follow me again. I can pretend that nothing happened. The next time we meet, we'll still be friends. If you dare to follow me, I can't guarantee that you'll die today and fall on the right bank of the Milky Way. Howl. If you're not afraid of death, then follow me. After the last roar, the scarlet greedy wolf didn't say anything else. It glanced back cautiously from time to time to guard against the big-headed black stick that could come crashing down on it at any time. On the other hand, it used its maximum speed to shoot ahead. Now, he had changed the direction of his advance. Previously, he was rushing towards the far right edge of the Milky Way, but now, looking at the direction he was heading, it was clearly heading straight for the right bank of the Milky Way starfield, just slightly to the left. Already. At this time, Yi Xian and the scarlet greedy wolf were still a few trillion miles away from the left bank of the Milky Way. However, both of them were powerful universe knights, and now, one was running for his life, and the other was chasing. They unleashed all the power in their bodies and pushed their speed to the limit. Under such circumstances, although the distance of a few trillion miles was far, it only took 2 to 3 days to leave it behind. 2 days later, they were very close to the left bank of the Milky Way. At most, they would reach it in less than a day. During these 2 days, Yi Xian and the scarlet greedy wolf were chasing each other, and the gigantic raging ape behind them would occasionally swing its terrifying big-headed black stick and hit the scarlet greedy wolf once or twice. This caused a huge commotion. Along the way, there would occasionally be some ferocious beast stars hibernating like independent cultivators. They were all shocked by this unexpected scene. Regardless of whether they were Universe Knights or Universe Masters, none of them dared to show themselves. As the saying went, when the gods fought, the little devils suffered. This was a fight between 2 powerful Universe Knights. With their level of cultivation, if they really wanted to show themselves, even if it was just to watch, they would not be able to. It would be lively. In the end, there was a high possibility that they would be affected and destroyed along the way by one of the existences, as if to vent their anger. Another half a day later, they were only a few 100 billion miles away from the left bank of the Milky Way. At this time, the raging ape, who had been chasing closely, once again swung the big-headed black stick in its right hand. Without any hesitation, it raised the stick high above its head and smashed it hard on the back of the scarlet greedy wolf's head. A woo! An incomparably shrill howl of agony was heard. This time, because it was smashed on the back of the scarlet greedy wolf's head, it was especially painful. The howl of the scarlet greedy wolf was especially shrill. Besides, they were only a few 100 billion miles away from the left bank of the Milky Way. With such a shrill howl, coupled with a strong sense of grief and indignation of a Universe Supreme Master, almost in the blink of an eye, all the Supreme Forbidden Lands and Supreme Star regions on the left half of the right bank of the Milky Way in front of them were completely destroyed. Chapter 45:14. At that moment, Yi Xian and the bloody greedy wolf were chasing each other toward the left half of the right bank of the Milky Way star field. With Yi Xian hitting the greedy wolf's head with his staff, the bloody greedy wolf's howl was especially shrill. In the left half of the vast right bank of the Milky Way, all the forbidden lands and star fields, big and small, fell into a dead silence. Immediately after a few breaths of time, cries of shock and disbelief rang out one after another. What happened? Why is the wolf howling so shrill? And, vaguely, I can clearly sense the powerful pressure of a Universe Supreme. A Universe Supreme being is being beaten up, said Luo Feng. Howling so miserably, what kind of torture is this? It's unbelievable. The voice sounds familiar. It seems to be the bloody greedy wolf from the Blood Wolf Starfield, with the power of a first-level Universe Supreme. But, to be able to torture him to this extent, I'm afraid even a third-level Pinnacle Initial Stage Supreme would find it difficult to do so. Generally speaking, even Universe Masters are unlikely to have a war of this magnitude, let alone Universe Supreme Masters. What exactly is going on? Luo Feng wondered. Judging from the commotion, this scarlet greedy wolf seems to have been chased all the way here from afar. It's clearly like a stray dog. For a dignified Supreme being to be forced to such a state, it's really embarrassing. Let's go and have a look. Pang! Howl! Along with the cries of shock, several figures rushed out from the forbidden lands and starfields, big and small, on the left half of the right bank of the Milky Way, hundreds of billions of miles ahead. After all, this was a battle between Universe Supreme Masters. Those who dared to come out and watch the show had to be at least a 9th-level Universe Master or a half-step Supreme. If one's power was lower than this level, even if one just watched from afar, it was still an extremely dangerous thing to do. There was a possibility that the 2 Universe Supreme Masters, who were in a rage, would hold a grudge against them. Therefore, in the forbidden lands and starfields, big and small, on the left half of the right bank of the Milky Way, although there were countless space beasts and ancient survivors, basically all of them were hibernating in their own lairs. They could only quietly shut themselves in. All of this was happening. Only a few dozen figures rushed out, and all of them were half-step Supreme Masters, early Supreme Masters, or middle-stage Supreme Masters. Those powerful beings at the late-stage Supreme Master level needed to shut themselves in to break through to the next level. So basically, they wouldn't care about such boring things. As for the few who had surpassed the level of Universe Supreme and reached the level of Primordial Great Beings or even Primordial Supreme Beings, there might be some in the Forbidden Lands and Star regions on the left half of the right bank of the Milky Way. However, for many years, existences of this level had never appeared in public on both sides of the Milky Way. The reason why existences of this level were lurking here was because they were after the primordial luck in the Milky Way starfield. They were no longer interested. Among the dozens of figures that were shooting toward them, more than half of them were Universe Masters or half-Supreme Masters at Pinnacle Level 9. None of them dared to rush out of the supreme forbidden lands or supreme starfields they were in. They stopped at the edge of the forbidden lands and supreme starfields and looked over in surprise. Bien Yen extended his spirit consciousness and started to investigate. Only a true supreme being of the universe would dare to charge out of the edge of the forbidden area. However, they didn't truly approach Yi Xian and the blood-colored greedy wolf. Instead, they stopped about 50 to 60 billion kilometers in front of them. There were more than a dozen figures like this. They were of different sizes, and their bodies were all enveloped in dazzling light balls of different colors. Generally speaking, beings at the level of universe masters and above would do this when they went out. The light balls that enveloped them represented the comprehension of some kind of primordial law of these powerful beings. Not only could the light balls hide their bodies and conceal their auras, but they also had defensive abilities. At this moment, the dazzling light balls of different colors rushed out of their respective forbidden lands and star fields. They stopped in the universe void tens of billions of miles in front of them and looked from afar. With just one look, they could see clearly what was happening here. Immediately after, cries of astonishment rang out one after another. Hiss! Is this still bloody greedy wolf? What kind of grudge? How could he be tortured to this extent? I almost couldn't recognize him. What happened to him? His head and body are full of bumps. There are at least 100 of them. He's a universe supreme. If he were a universe master, he would have died hundreds of times. A ferocious ape? Hiss! A second-stage supreme master with a body that is tens of millions of miles long and exudes an extremely dense aura. This is at least a first-stage supreme master. This ferocious ape's true combat power is comparable to a third-stage supreme master. It's comparable to a first-stage supreme master. That's right. He's only one step away from becoming a middle-stage supreme master. Bloody greedy wolf, what's going on? Doesn't he know that space berserk apes are famous for their bad temper? No wonder he was beaten up like this. He must be out of his mind. A first-stage supreme master actually went to provoking a being comparable to a third-stage supreme master, and it's an unreasonable space berserk ape. Pang! Howl! Just as these universe knights were exclaiming in shock, the ferocious ape, who was chasing after bloody greedy wolf tens of billions of miles away, swung the big-headed black stick in his right hand again with a cold gleam in his eyes. He smashed the stick down, and this time he was lucky. It hit the back of bloody greedy wolf's head. The latter had been hit hundreds of times in the past 3 days. There were big swollen lumps all over his body. At this moment, he was caught off guard and was hit on the back of his head again. He immediately let out an incomparably shrill scream. He didn't slow down at all, and after howling in agony, he turned to the group of Universe Supremes who were watching from afar and started to plead bitterly. Fellow Taoists, please save me. Can you not just make sarcastic remarks? It's not easy for all of us Supreme Masters. Hurry up and stop the fight. Black Bear, we're friends. We even got together last time. It's only been a few hundred years. Don't tell me you've forgotten? Seeing me like this, you don't want to help me. That's too disloyal of you. In the end, the scarlet greedy wolf's figure shot over while asking for help. It even nodded. The other Universe Supreme Masters didn't care, but Space Black Bear, who was shrouded in a black light that was tens of millions of miles long, was frustrated. Chapter 45:15. Raging Ape, we're both Supremes. That's enough. You won't be able to kill him if we continue. Universe Supremes don't die so easily. They all have their own life-saving methods. With a flash, the black light rushed forward for tens of billions of miles and stopped abruptly in the void. Immediately after, the Space Black Bear's muffled voice came from the light. Although he wasn't willing to pay attention to such matters, as he said, Universe Supremes weren't like Universe Masters. Which Universe Supremes didn't have life-saving methods? As a Universe Supremacy, it wasn't so easy to truly die. Since the bloody greedy wolf had already called him out, if he didn't do anything, he would definitely be hated by the Space Black Bear later on. There was no need for that. Besides, the bloody greedy wolf had already pleaded. Universe Supremes all had their own reputation. If he still didn't do anything, it would leave a bad impression in the eyes of the other Supremes. So, even if he was depressed in his heart and would probably owe this violent ape a great favor, he had no other choice but to make an appearance. As for the bloody greedy wolf, seeing that the Space Black Bear that had been hibernating in the black light finally showed up, he immediately expressed his thanks. His tone was obviously much more relaxed. Even his body that was charging forward at extreme speed stopped in front of him. It was obvious that he believed that the violent ape that had been chasing him relentlessly would definitely give up and find a place to descend. After all, the space black bear's cultivation wasn't weak. It had already reached the peak of the early Third Order universe supremacy. If they were to really compare, it wasn't any weaker than the raging ape. Moreover, although he had been chased by the raging ape for the past 3 days like a stray dog, it was simply embarrassing. This was because he hadn't used his life-saving methods at all. That required a certain price to pay. Unless it was a true life and death moment, no Universe Supremes would easily use such a trump card. And this raging ape was following behind him. Although it had been strong all along, he had only suffered some physical pain. It was far from reaching the level of near life and death crisis. The raging ape should be clear about this. Hence, since it knew that it couldn't kill him, it was naturally the best time to get off the donkey. Not only did he gain enough face, he also vented his anger. He even made the starry sky black bear owe him a big favor. It could be said that in the face of such a situation, any Universe Supreme would know how to choose. Unfortunately, even though this was the reason, he'd forgotten something. This time, he defended a starry sky ferocious ape that was renowned for its violent temper. If Yi Xian was really so easy to deal with, then would anyone fear him? The reason why he had chased them all the way here was to make a bigger commotion. After all, he now had the combat power of a peak early-stage Universe Supreme. It was indeed necessary for him to deliberately show off and establish his brutal and unreasonable image. It's time to come. Roar! That's enough? Black Bear, this Star-Lord here is still far from enough. As soon as the starry sky Black Bear finished speaking, the violent ape raised its head and roared angrily. It continued with incomparable indignation. This Star Master has no enmity with him. When we suddenly met in the void, he actually jumped out and wanted to kill this Star Master and steal his treasure. I'm afraid even you can't stand being involved in this kind of thing, right? This Star-Lord has a short temper, and I definitely won't let him off. Black Bear, if you want to stand up for him, this Star-Lord will at most fight 1 against 2, and I'll beat you up all the same. Hong long long. Xiao. After the last sentence, the huge body of the starry sky ferocious ape suddenly collapsed into a pool of blood and spread out. As it moved along with the wind, it expanded over 10 billion miles in an instant, and it happened to be able to absorb the bloody greedy wolf, who had just stopped abruptly in front of it, into this blood sea. In it. Roar. Roar. Screech. Then, from 3 different directions of this vast sea of blood, there were earth-shattering roars and howls. Then, from the shocking and boundless sea of blood, there were 3 huge figures that instantly rose from the ground. They were the 3 great demon bodies of the ancient demon ape. One was a body of flesh and blood, which was the starry sky ferocious ape. The other was a skeleton without any flesh and blood. It was just a purple-gold skeleton, and it exuded an endless ferocious aura, which was extremely ferocious. The other was a body of black fog. Although it was also in the shape of a ferocious ape, its body was a cloud of black fog, and even its eyes were only 2 clouds of purple light, which was extremely strange. Under normal circumstances, the 3 great demon bodies were a trinity, and their backs seemed to be stuck together. However, Yi Xian performed the clone power of the Blood Sea secret technique and separated the 3 great demon bodies of the ancient demon ape into 3 Blood Sea bodies. Now, he had completely comprehended the power of this level of the Blood Sea secret technique. Therefore, the 3 Blood Sea bodies all exuded the aura of a second-level Universe Supreme. Moreover, as the 3 Blood Sea avatars were all 60 million miles long, they were like the largest giant star. The power of qi and blood in such a terrifying physical body was too majestic, directly causing their actual battle strength to soar by 1 level. In other words, the 3 Blood Sea bodies all had the combat power of a 3rd-level Universe Supreme, and any one of them was not weaker than the starry sky ferocious ape. As for the crimson greedy wolf, if it was only the ferocious ape, it might have been difficult to kill it, but now that the 3 Blood Sea bodies had joined forces and besieged it, it was impossible to kill the crimson greedy wolf. There was no more suspense. Seeing this scene, especially from Yi Xian's words just now, he roughly understood the cause and effect of the scene in front of him and the cause of the incident. In the void ahead, there were more than a dozen dazzling balls of light of different colors, and in an instant, there were exclamations of surprise again. What? Kill and steal? Is there something wrong with the crimson greedy wolf's brain? A first-level Supreme wants to kill and steal the Starry Sky Ferocious Ape, who has the combat power of a third-level Supreme. This is simply courting death. Hiss. This is the Blood Sea secret technique. I heard that there was a master of the Blood Sea who, although he was only a universe master, had 5 Blood Sea bodies. As long as the Blood Sea bodies were not destroyed, he would not die. It seems that that fellow has already died in the hands of the ferocious ape. The Blood Sea secret technique was stolen, and it was deduced to the perfect form by the ferocious ape. In this form, the ferocious ape is equivalent to 3 third-level Supreme beings. Only a 6th-level Supreme being at the peak of the mid-level Supreme realm can kill it. Faced with all this, especially the complete Blood Sea secret technique displayed by the ferocious ape, even the Starry Sky Ferocious Ape was a little dumbfounded. This Blood Wolf was stupid to take the initiative to provoke a third-level Starry Sky Ferocious Ape, and it caused the Starry Sky Ferocious Ape to lose face. It was simply depressing. Chapter 45:16. Howl. Big Wolf Dog, come and accept your death. Seeing the black mass of light retreat in frustration, it was obvious that it was planning to leave the matter at that and not care about the rhythm of this matter anymore. The 3 bloody sea bodies rose from the ground, and they all raised their heads and roared. Even if we can't kill you today, we'll at least cripple you. Hong. Xiao. As soon as he finished speaking, the body of flesh and blood that was holding the big-headed black stick, which was also Violent Ape, raised the big-headed black stick high above its head and smashed it forward. On the other side, the skeleton body clenched its fist that was as huge as a meteor. With a sway of its body, it threw a punch at the bloody greedy wolf. The black fog body was the most bizarre. Its form was originally an energy form, and it was ever-changing. At this moment, Yi Xian used the black fog body to execute the Netherworld bloodline and transformed into a ferocious ghost head that was tens of millions of feet long. It had dense fangs, and as it roared, it opened its mouth and attacked the bloody greedy wolf. The bloody greedy wolf went wild. The 3 bloody sea bodies didn't show their attacking forms, but their power wasn't weak. All of them had a powerful aura that was comparable to a third-level Universe Supreme. At this moment, they formed a triangle and attacked the bloody greedy wolf that was trapped in the middle. In an instant, the bloody greedy wolf that was surrounded by them started to tremble all over. These were 3 beings with a combat power that was comparable to a third-level Universe Supreme. With the bloody greedy wolf's strength as a first-level Universe Supreme, he couldn't even defeat one of them. If he were to face them head-on, he would only be beaten up, let alone now when it was 1 against 3? Previously, when he was chased by Yi Xian for 3 days, he didn't feel that a true life-and-death crisis was about to befall him. But now, at this moment, when the 3 bloody sea bodies that surrounded him in a triangle attacked him with all their strength at the same time, the bloody greedy wolf finally felt that something was wrong. Even if he could take this attack head-on and not die, he would at least be half dead. If he really fell into that kind of situation, today's matter would really be tragic. Once he was heavily injured, he would not even have the chance to use his trump card. Being surrounded by 3 powerful Blood Sea avatars in the Blood Sea, he would definitely be tortured to death. As these thoughts flashed through its mind, the scarlet greedy wolf immediately made its decision. "Awoo. Bao Yuan, I'm not done with you for today's matter. There will come a day when I will personally take revenge for what happened today." Grief and indignation appeared on the wolf's face. It raised its head and let out a long howl that was filled with unwillingness and anger. He suddenly roared, "Greedy wolf, disintegrate!" Bang! Rumble! Almost at the same time he shouted the last sentence, an incredibly violent and restless aura suddenly surged out of the trapped blood-greedy wolf. Immediately after, before Yi Xian could react, his enormous figure that was tens of thousands of kilometers long completely exploded in an instant, turning into a bloody mist that spread out. This scene looked like self-destruction, but it was obviously not self-destruction. This should be some kind of life-saving technique of the greedy wolf clan, similar to the sky demon disintegration. Using self-destruction as the price to escape in pain. At this moment, as the bloody greedy wolf's gigantic body exploded in an instant, the void where its body was originally was also torn apart by this incredibly majestic impact. Immediately after that, in less than 1/10 of a breath's time, the endless cloud of blood mist formed by the explosion of the bloody greedy wolf's gigantic body seemed to have a mind of its own. All of it scurried into the shattered void and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After all, this was the Hongmeng void, and the Hongmeng law's power was too strong. Even if a Universe Supreme used a secret technique to create a terrifying shockwave storm that looked like self-destruction, It would only cause the void to shatter for less than a moment. The moment the cloud of blood mist from the bloody greedy wolf's body scurried in, the shattered void within a radius of 100 million miles was completely mended at a speed visible to the naked eye under the influence of the powerful Hong Meng law. The greedy wolf clan actually has such a bloodline secret technique? They can actually use the void to locate their position and instantly self-destruct their body to escape. Looking at the rapidly mending void before him, Bao Yuan's eyes flashed, and Yi Xian's voice came out of his mouth. Forget it. Even though I didn't destroy it, the result is the same. The price of such a secret technique is too high. This time, after this bloody greedy wolf escapes, even if it can reconstruct its treasure body, its power will definitely drop to the level of a universe master. Humph. How shameless. When he was a universe supreme, he couldn't do anything to me, and he was tortured to the point of self-destructing his body to escape. Now that he's about to drop to the level of a universe master, he still dares to say such words? The next time I meet him, I'll definitely kill him on the spot. Hum. At the same time, the skeleton body and the cloud of blood mist instantly transformed into two clouds of blood mist and collapsed, merging into the boundless blood sea beneath their feet. Immediately after, Yi Xian removed the blood sea secret technique, and the boundless blood sea that covered an area of 10 billion miles rapidly shrank into Bao Yuan's gigantic body within a breath's time. After that, Bao Yuan seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and he mumbled again. Yes, this bloody greedy wolf has been dealt with. Even though it didn't die, it won't be able to come out of seclusion within the next 100 years. I'll definitely try to reconstruct my treasure body. I'm afraid I won't be able to find it in such a short time. However, other than this bloody greedy wolf, there was another one who wanted to kill me and steal my treasure. He was a universe master who was a half-step supreme at complete level 9. Even though he escaped long ago, I already know his background. He can run, but he can't hide. Previously, I couldn't find the time, but now that I've dealt with the bloody greedy wolf, I've dealt with him. Then, it's time for me to kill my way to that intermediate level supreme forbidden land and find that half-step supreme at complete level 9. Find him and kill him with a stick to vent my hatred. After saying that, Yi Xian didn't hesitate anymore. He raised his right arm, and the terrifying big-headed black stick was instantly placed on his right shoulder. Then, with a flash of his body, he dashed toward the distance to the right. That half-step supreme who had escaped was in an intermediate-level supreme forbidden land on the right bank of the Milky Way. Now that the bloody greedy wolf had escaped and wouldn't appear again within the next 100 years, Yi Xian wasn't worried that the bloody greedy wolf would spread some of his secrets. However, he definitely couldn't let that half-step supreme guy go. Silencing him was the right thing to do. Xiao. Chapter 45:17. The ferocious ape, who was 60 million miles tall, carried the big-headed black stick, which was filled with a ferocious aura, and left in a hurry. The dozen universe supremes, who had been left behind, were stunned for a short while. Then they exclaimed again. They got up. My friends, did you hear that? Other than that stupid bloody greedy wolf, there's also a half-step supreme being who wanted to kill this ferocious ape and steal its treasure? Damn! Did he get kicked in the head by a donkey? A half-step supreme being at level 9 of a universe master wants to rob a ferocious ape that's comparable to a level 3 supreme being? Without a doubt, the bloody greedy wolf must have given him the courage to do so. These two bastards must have other arrangements and a sneak attack. That's why they have the guts to do so. Unfortunately, they failed in the end. The bloody greedy wolf was lucky enough to use the life-saving technique of the greedy wolf race. It paid a heavy price and self-destructed its physical body to escape. But that universe master, who is a half-step supreme at level 9, might not be so lucky. It is only a small intermediate supreme forbidden area, and it is impossible for a universe supreme to guard it. He should be the strongest being in that area, and now he has been killed. But now, he has been killed. Now that the ape is here, it's going to be a bloodbath. This violent ape can't be provoked, it's too vengeful. It's a grand second-rank supreme being. Its battle prowess is even comparable to a third rank of this realm. Even if it was provoked, it still forced a supreme being level blood-colored greedy wolf to self-destruct and flee. The anger in its heart is actually... It's still angry and wants to find trouble with a half-step supreme being. It's obviously bullying the weak. The ferocious ape race is indeed a little hot-tempered. There's no reason to reason with them at all. As these cries of surprise rang out,
the dozen or so resplendent balls of light of different colors all turned around one after another and returned to their respective high-level forbidden areas. Through this battle, they had an extremely deep impression of this irascible and unreasonable starry sky ferocious ape. Without a doubt, as the news of this battle gradually spread, in the future, if it was not necessary, within the area of the right bank of the Milky Way, even universe supreme beings would not easily provoke this violent ape. One day later.
Swish! In the void, a sharp sound of something breaking through the air rang out. A ray of light streaked across the void at an extremely fast speed, faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had already disappeared from sight. This light was none other than Yi Xian. At this moment, he was still maintaining the 9th form of the 9 changes of the demonic ape. His body was 60 million miles long, and the aura emanating from his body was that of a second-level universe supreme. However, his actual combat power was comparable to that of a third-level supreme. It was to the extent that even the big-headed black stick with an incomparably dense baleful aura was still carried by one of his arms on his right shoulder at this moment. 10 billion miles ahead of them was the right bank of the Milky Way. That universe master, who was a half-step supreme at the 9th level, who had escaped, was in an intermediate supreme forbidden area more than 10 billion miles away. He was the most powerful being in that intermediate supreme forbidden area. Previously, after killing Blood Sea Master, Yi Xian had a detailed understanding of the other 9 universe masters in the small circle who had been secretly keeping a close eye on him. The original form of this half-step supreme who had escaped was a space blue wolf, and at this moment, Yi Xian was rushing over with a strong momentum. His only objective was to kill this wolf to silence it. Other than this space blue wolf, there was another universe master in the intermediate supreme forbidden area more than 10 billion miles ahead of them. However, this universe master was only at the 3rd level of this realm. To Yi Xian, this universe master was simply an ant. Even if he did not use the bloodline secret technique of the 9 changes of the demonic ape, he could easily kill this universe master. Swish! To Yi Xian, who was in the 9th change and had the combat power of an early-stage supreme master, the distance of more than 10 billion miles of void space only took him a moment to cover. In the blink of an eye, the terrifying figure of the raging ape, which was 60 million miles long, transformed into an extremely fast-flowing arrow and rushed into this intermediate supreme forbidden area. Previously, Yi Xian and the bloody greedy wolf had rushed to the edge of the right bank of the Milky Way star sector at an extremely fast speed from the ambush site. They did not waste any time along the way. The speed of these 2 universe masters was obviously far beyond that of the half-step supreme level space blue wolf. After that, Yi Xian forced the bloody greedy wolf to pay a huge price by using the bloodline secret technique to self-destruct its physical body and escape. He did not waste any time and rushed over here directly. Hence, under normal circumstances, that space blue wolf who had escaped first should not have made it to this intermediate supreme forbidden area where he was guarding. It was most likely that he was still on his way back. However, Yi Xian was not worried about this at all. This was because when the enemy had escaped, it had used the bloodline secret technique of the universe master of the Bug Clan, who was called Black Knight. This type of escaping secret technique of the Bug Clan had a very strange power. Even in the void space that was shrouded by the Blood Sea secret technique, it could easily escape in an instant. This alone was enough to show how powerful it was. Hence, according to Yi Xian's estimation, this half-step supreme-level space blue wolf had most likely already returned to this intermediate supreme forbidden area in front of him after using that secret technique of the Bug Clan. He would never have thought that Yi Xian would be able to get rid of the first-stage universe master bloody greedy wolf in such a short time. It was extremely likely that he never thought that Yi Xian would actually dare to directly come knocking on his door. Furthermore, he'd rushed over as soon as he finished off the blood-greedy wolf. Roar! Space blue wolf, you coward, come out now and accept your death. At this very moment, after transforming into a ray of light and rushing into this intermediate supreme forbidden area at extreme speed, Yi Xian immediately raised his head and roared angrily. The voice of his deific consciousness immediately spread out. In an instant, within his terrifying physical body that spanned 60 million miles, a surge of majestic supreme pressure that made one's hair stand on end instantly spread out like a raging river. Within a breath's time, it had already enveloped this vast and boundless intermediate supreme forbidden area. At the same time, Yi Xian's terrifying supreme-level deific consciousness immediately swept through the entire intermediate supreme forbidden area. In an instant, he locked onto 2 gigantic ferocious beast stars on the left and right sides of the distant void space in front of him. These 2 ferocious beast stars each had the aura of a universe master.
Without a doubt, they were the nests of his two targets this time. Li.
Chapter 45:18. Screech. Screech. Two incomparably shrill screeches rang out. From the two giant ferocious beast stars in front of them, two gigantic figures soared into the sky. After rushing out of the atmosphere, they did not stop at all. Instead, they headed straight for this intermediate supreme being, one on the left and one on the right. They shot toward the edge of the forbidden land. This was clearly the rhythm of wanting to seize the opportunity to escape. The two figures were only 30,000 feet tall. Obviously, they had deliberately shrunk their bodies, but the aura of cultivation emitted from their bodies was that of a universe master. One of them was at the early stage of this realm, and the other was at the 9th stage of this realm, which was half a step into the supreme level. It's too late to think of leaving now. Seeing this scene, the mouth of the violent ape immediately let out a chilling voice. Without any hesitation, its terrifying body, which was as big as 60 million miles, instantly transformed into a fine ray of light and shot out. In half a breath's time, it had already blocked the path of the figure on the right. The one who had chosen this side to escape was the space blue wolf. At this time, its body had shrunk to around 30,000 feet. Compared to the 60 million miles huge violent ape, it was simply less than an ant. In reality, this starry sky blue wolf that was completely blue in color was just like an ant when compared to the current violent ape. As the violent ape's body swayed and blocked its path in front of it, the momentum of the space blue wolf's dash came to an abrupt halt. Two traces of despair shot out from its eyes, and there was also a faint sense of confusion, as if it was in a dream. At this moment, he stared at the violent ape in front of him, and in his heart, there was indeed an illusion that he was in a dream. Thinking back not long ago, he and the other 8 universe masters had set up a trap and besieged this violent ape. The other party was just a beast in a cage, and it was not even possible for it to pull out and escape. At that time, they could be said to be complacent, and they even began to look forward to killing or capturing the violent ape later on. How would they distribute the benefits? However, the changes in reality were shocking. In a short period of time, the other 8 universe masters were killed one by one, and only he managed to escape. Furthermore, if there were no accidents, even the universe supremes who were invited later would most likely have fled in embarrassment. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, a ferocious expression appeared on the face of the space blue wolf. He glared fiercely at Yi Xian, and the voice of his consciousness transmitted, "Bao Yuan, I just want to know one thing. After I left, which universe supremes were invited? How is it now?" Although he's still alive, he used a secret bloodline technique to self-destruct and escape. A light flashed in his eyes as Yi Xian's voice sounded out from the mouth of the violent ape. If nothing unexpected happens, he should be hiding in a nest that can't be seen in the light right now and think of a way to reconstruct his treasure body. As for his cultivation strength, it must have fallen to the point where it can't be seen. Now that he's in the venerable realm, he's not much different from a semi-cripple. Screech! Hearing these words, Space Blue Wolf finally lost all hope, and a dim light appeared in his eyes. He raised his head and let out a shrill cry, revealing an endless sense of grief and indignation. Even a true universe supremes had such an ending, and he was only a half-supreme at the 9th level of a universe master, so what could he do? Today he was bound to die. "Even if I die, I won't let you have an easy time." Pang! After the ferocious roar, the expression of the starry sky blue wolf instantly became extremely ferocious. Knowing that there was no hope for him to survive, he finally roared angrily and directly self-destructed. The huge body exploded into a blue blood mist in the blink of an eye and spread out. Ka-cha! Ka-cha-cha! Pang pang pang! This was a half-supreme at the 9th level of a universe master, and at this moment, both his godly soul and body exploded at the same time, and he died just like that. However, the powerful destructive force that was produced as a result also instantly annihilated all the large and small stars within a radius of 100 million miles. Even the void space was shattered inch by inch. At the same time, dense crackling sounds rang out, and at the same time, endless turbulence of the void space also appeared. Turbulence surged out. With the appearance of these turbulence of the void space, the cloud of blue blood mist that had exploded from Space Blue Wolf's body scattered in all directions in an instant. It looked like it was about to be swept into the raging turbulence of the void space. This is a piece of supreme-grade blood essence of a universe master. How can it be wasted like this? Seeing this scene, a cold light flashed in Bao Yuan's eyes. At the same time,
He waved his hand and wrapped up all the spreading blue blood mist and sent it into his body.
After doing all this, Yi Xian did not hesitate at all. He turned his head and looked in another direction. Over there, the Universe Master, who was fleeing at top speed like a stray dog, was only at the initial stage of this realm. Even if he unleashed his top speed and fled for a while first, to the raging ape, it didn't affect him at all. Even the half-supreme self-esteem of a Universe Master at the 9th level of a Universe Master self-destructed. You don't tell me you still think you can get away by luck? Bao Yuan's words were filled with endless disdain.
With a shake of his shoulders, his enormous body that was 60 million miles long disappeared from the spot.
When he reappeared, he was already close to 10 billion miles to the left. Coincidentally, he was 200 to 300 million miles away from this initial stage Universe Master, blocking his path. Li. This initial stage Universe Master's body came to an abrupt halt.
His eyes were filled with intense despair as he raised his head and let out a shrill howl.
Pang! There was no suspense in what happened next. A huge rumbling sound rang out from the void space. Bao Yuan's body flashed, and he threw a punch. This initial stage Universe Master did not even have the chance to howl in grief before his enormous body exploded with a loud bang. In an instant, his 30,000-foot-tall Universe Master body completely exploded into a dazzling bloody mist and spread out. Xiao! After ending all this, Bao Yuan waved his hand at the first instant. An incomparably majestic, formless force rolled out from his body and enveloped an area of 10 million miles. The majestic bloody mist that had just spread out was swept up and absorbed into his body. Immediately, it was sent into Shen Nong Cauldron by Yi Xian to begin the blood essence condensation process, Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. The next instant, as Yi Xian pushed his godly consciousness to the maximum, it enveloped the entire boundless intermediate supreme forbidden area. In an instant, everything within the 2-star nests of Universe Masters, regardless of whether it was big or small, was clearly reflected in his godly consciousness. Within, a piercing sound rang out as streaks of light rushed out from within the 2-star nests. They pierced through the atmosphere of the star nests and headed straight for the gigantic space-violent ape. Chapter 45:19. Before embarking on this hunt, Yi Xian had never imagined that he would be able to collect so much essence blood of Eternity Lords before the first refinement of the level. 27 Supreme Treasure Pill. It was important to know that every essence blood of Eternity Lords represented a powerful Universe Master, and it could only be refined with the help of the Farmer God Cauldron's Farmer God Strange Flame after the complete explosion of the Universe Master's body. As for Yi Xian, although he could already possess the powerful battle prowess of a second-level Universe Supreme under the state of the 9th transformation of the demonic ape, his true cultivation level was only at the first-level Universe Master level, and he had just made a breakthrough. He had just entered this state, and yet he was able to kill more than a dozen Universe Masters of the same level who were several levels higher than him in terms of cultivation level. Such a feat was unimaginable to anyone else. It was precisely because of this that he was able to use this to rapidly increase his cultivation level. Time and time again, he was able to smoothly and effortlessly break through the bottleneck of the various levels, which was why it was so rare. Currently, other than Yi Xian, there was probably no one else who could refine the various levels of treasure pills. He was definitely the only one who could do so, and there was no other. On one hand, this was because he needed the Farmer God Strange Flame to unleash the refinement, and this alone limited everyone else because Yi Xian was the only one who possessed the Farmer God Cauldron. On the other hand, it was because he possessed the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. If he didn't possess this heaven-defying bloodline ability, and if he hadn't deduced it to the 9th transformation, which allowed him to instantly increase his cultivation level by 1 level after fully activating it, even if Yi Xian possessed the Farmer God Cauldron, he wouldn't be able to kill a powerful ferocious beast of the same level. It would also be futile to refine the essence blood of a ferocious beast. A level 27 Supreme Treasure Pill could allow a Universe Master, who was a half-step supreme at the peak of the 9th level, to smoothly break through to the level of a Universe Supreme in a short period of time. Such an item probably didn't exist even during the Great Wilderness era of the previous Primordial era. At most, there were some innate treasures with similar effects or treasures of the Primordial Chaos level. But now, the old Primordial era was about to end and the new Primordial era was about to arrive. This heaven-defying Supreme Treasure Pill was about to appear in Yi Xian's hands. Of course, if he wanted to refine a level 27 Sovereign Supreme Pellet, there was still a crucial problem that needed to be solved immediately. That was the perfect pill formula for the 27th grade Supreme Treasure Pill. This time, It was indeed quite embarrassing.
The blood essence of the Eternity Lord needed to refine the 27-level Supreme Treasure Pill had all been prepared, and the amount had far exceeded his expectations.
But even now, Yi Xian still hadn't been able to deduce the perfect pill recipe for the 27-level Supreme Treasure Pill. During this period of time, I've been preoccupied with hunting down Universe Masters, especially when I was trapped by the 9 Universe Masters. I forced myself to make breakthroughs 3 times in a row. After all, I was in too much of a hurry. Yi Xian muttered to himself, his eyes gleaming. Now I can make use of the opportunity to deduce the perfect pill formula for the 27-level Supreme Treasure Pill to consolidate my state of mind and strengthen my foundation. At this point, he didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately shrunk his body to a height of about 3 feet. However, he didn't release himself from the bloodline ability of the 9th transformation of the demonic ape. Instead, he merely used the Blood Sea secret technique to shrink his body. Hence, even though his body had shrunk to a height of about 3 feet, the power within his body didn't change. He was still at the level of a 2nd-level Universe Supreme. The only difference was that the majestic power of blood and energy within his huge body gave his overall combat power a boost of 1 level. That was all. Xiao. Even though his body had shrunk, Yi Xian still had the power of a 2nd-level Universe Supreme. Once he activated the power within his body, he unleashed his extreme speed. Compared to before, it was obvious that he was much faster. A ray of light streaked across the void at a speed far faster than lightning. In an instant, it was already far away and disappeared. After leaving this intermediate Supreme Forbidden Area, Yi Xian directly activated the interstellar coordinate jump ability attached to the system within his body. With a sway of his body, he instantly transformed into a ray of light and disappeared. This time, the coordinates he locked onto were still near the source nest star that nurtured Yi Xian's most powerful body. This was necessary. With his current power, which was at the level of a 2nd-level Universe Supreme, even if he used the method of crossing the void to arrive here from the intermediate Supreme Forbidden Area, it wouldn't take him much time. However, above the Supreme level, there were still Supreme Beings of the Primordial Era and Supreme Beings of the Primordial Era. Yi Xian couldn't be sure if he had been targeted by such beings. Even with the protection of the Farmer God Cauldron, it was still better to be careful. After all, now that the Space Blue Wolf had been killed, and the bloody greedy wolf's body had been destroyed, it probably wouldn't appear again for the next 100 years. In this part of the Chaos Void, there were no external enemies who knew that Yi Xian possessed the Farmer God Cauldron. It was naturally best not to expose this, lest some beings coveted it. Xiao! After arriving near the Source Nest Star, Yi Xian's body transformed into a ray of light and disappeared, heading toward the giant abandoned star in front of him. With familiarity, he directly entered the core of this abandoned star and summoned the Farmer God Cauldron with a wave of his hand. Of course, it was in its shrunken form. Otherwise, even this giant abandoned star was only comparable to the complete form of the Farmer God Cauldron. It wouldn't be able to contain it at all. After that, Yi Xian's body flashed, and he directly rushed toward the mouth of the cauldron that was enshrouded in 9-colored fog and sat down cross-legged. After adjusting his state of mind, he quickly collected his thoughts and combined with the devouring system in his body. He pushed the system's calculation and deduction ability to the extreme, and with the help of the terrifying divine consciousness of a 2nd-level Universe Supreme, he began to analyze the level 27 treasure pill. He fully deduced the perfect pill formula. Previously, when he was deducing the perfect pill formula of the level 26 treasure pill, Yi Xian had spent nearly half a year. This time, on one hand, Yi Xian's current cultivation level had reached 2nd-level Universe Supreme, and his divine consciousness was much, much more powerful. On the other hand, it was because he had already deduced a part of the perfect pill formula of the level 27 treasure pill previously. Therefore, this time, it only took him about 3 months to successfully deduce the perfect pill formula of the level 27 treasure pill. After a short 3 months, Yi Xian opened his eyes, and there was a flash of passion in his eyes. Who? The perfect pill formula of the level 27 treasure pill? I've finally completed it successfully. After deducing the perfect pill formula, Yi Xian let out a long sigh of relief. As he muttered to himself, an incomparably excited light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Although my current cultivation level is only at the 1st level of the Eternity Lord Realm, and I'm only at the 1st level of the Eternity Lord Realm, there are still 8 levels to break through before I can consume a level 27 treasure pill. After calming down his excited emotions, Yi Xian fell into deep thought.
From time to time, a faint light flashed in his eyes, and he softly muttered, "But I'm afraid I can't hunt for Eternity Lord Blood Essence in the short term to avoid attracting unnecessary attention."
Chapter 45:20.
With a gleam in his eyes, Yi Xian made up his mind. Without further delay, he would make use of this opportunity to refine the level 27 treasure pill he would use to break through to the Universe Supreme level in the future.
Shill.
At that moment, Yi Xian was still sitting cross-legged at the mouth of the Shin Nong cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog. With a wave of his hand, 14 drops of Eternity Lord Blood Essence the size of an infant's fist appeared in his right palm. Among them, 2 of them exuded the aura of an Eternity Lord, and it was especially strong. These were condensed from the majestic aura of the 2 Universe Masters, who were half-supreme beings at the peak of the 9th tier. They were condensed from the majestic aura of Eternity Lords after their bodies exploded. If nothing unexpected happened, just these 2 top-grade Eternity Lord Blood Essences would be able to allow Yi Xian to refine 2 to 3 more level 27 Supreme Treasure Pills when they came out of the furnace. However, it was still unknown how many Supreme level Treasure Pills would be produced from this cauldron. These 14 drops of Eternity Lord Blood Essence would be the basic ingredients for Yi Xian's refinement of the level 27 Supreme level Treasure Pill, along with a large number of other top-tier precious materials and treasured bodies of primordial creatures. Besides these 2 most important basic ingredients, Yi Xian would also add in some all-evil liquid and top-tier resources he had found in the Hongmeng Void. When everything was ready, Yi Xian waved his hand abruptly and took out all the resources and top-tier precious materials required for the formula. Then he closed his eyes. The next moment, in the internal space of the Shin Nong cauldron within his body, in the flame pool at the bottom of the central region volcano,
Shill.
Xiao, xiao, xiao. Along with the sound of the air breaking, various colored lights shot out from the mouth of the cauldron in the sky above the central region volcano. They appeared directly above the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano and stopped abruptly. They were all the top-tier materials and training resources that Yi Xian had prepared for this level 27 Supreme level treasure pill.
Whew.
Immediately after, a sound like the howling of a violent wind sounded. Almost in the next instant, below these top-grade resources, from the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region, a majestic Shinnong 9-colored flame roared up. In the midst of the violent wind, the 9-colored flame sea instantly condensed into a 9-colored furnace that was about 10 feet in radius.
Cauldron.
The entire cauldron was small and simple. It gave off an extraordinary aura. As this small cauldron formed from pure Shinnong 9-colored flames took shape, the materials and resources that had been prepared earlier all flew up automatically. Entering this small cauldron that was only a few feet wide, the refining of the first batch of level 27 pills officially began. Just one level 27 treasure pill was enough to make a 9th stage complete level 9 Universe Master become a Universe Supreme Master in a split second. Its importance and value could be imagined. Moreover, this was the first time Yi Xian had refined a level 27 pill, so he didn't dare to lower his guard in the slightest. From the very beginning, he was wholeheartedly controlling everything. Very quickly, one medicinal concocting technique after another was formed by Yi Xian's hands. His speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they transformed into incomparably obscure and mysterious runes that entered the 9-colored cauldron at the bottom of the volcano. Unknowingly, half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Hong. Right at this moment, above the flame pool at the bottom of the central region in the space of the cauldron, there was a loud roar. The furnace condensed from pure Shinnong 9-colored flames dissipated instantly. The 9-colored flames rushed back to the flame pool at the bottom of the cauldron like a river. What remained above the flame pool were 14 round beads the size of an infant's fist. The surface of the round beads glowed with 9 colors, and there was a layer of dreamy halo around them. They gave off an ancient and heavy aura. They were level 27 Supreme Pills. Just one pill was enough to allow a 9th stage consummate Universe Master to achieve a breakthrough within a short period of time and directly enter the 27th level of the Universe Supreme Realm. This was the Supreme Treasure Pill. There are 14 of them? Looking at the 14 Supreme Pills floating in front of him, emitting a strong Supreme aura, Yi Xian gasped. As he muttered to himself, his eyes blazed with a dark light. Under normal circumstances, there should be about 10 level 27 Supreme Pills produced from the 14 drops of Blood Essence of Eternity Lord. Other than the 2 top-grade Blood Essences of Eternity Lord, the additional 4 pills were mostly due to the Shinnong 9-colored flames. In this way, apart from the one he swallowed, the remaining 13 pills would allow Yi Xian to have 13 more powerful Universe Supreme Beings among his subordinates in the future. Universe Supreme Beings guarded senior Forbidden Lands. But in fact, an ordinary senior Forbidden Land only had 3 Universe Supreme Beings at most. Even in a top-tier Forbidden Land guarded by a great being from the primordial era, the number of Universe Supreme Beings guarding it would never reach 13. At most, there would be less than 10. In this way, if all of the level 27 treasure pills in Yi Xian's hands were consumed, then the combined strength of him and his subordinates would even surpass that of a top-grade forbidden area. To the current him, all of this was simply like an unreal dream. However, Yi Xian believed that this day, it wouldn't be too far away. However, at the thought of the level 28 supreme pills, Yi Xian's joy vanished instantly. A deep sense of helplessness appeared on Bao Yuan's face. A level 28 supreme pill could allow a 9th stage consummate Universe Supreme being to break through to the primordial era in a short period of time. As for the raw materials used to make the level 28 supreme pill, other than the other supplementary materials that would be derived in the future, at least 5 pieces of supreme blood essence would be required. That was supreme blood essence, which could only be condensed by killing a Universe Supreme and using the majestic blood essence formed by the explosion of his complete body. Compared to Universe Masters, there were even fewer Universe Supreme Beings. Even in the most powerful forbidden areas on both sides of the vast Milky Way starfield, the total number was probably not too many. In fact, even if Yi Xian really encountered a Universe Supreme Being, with his current power and techniques, he would not be able to do anything to him. For example, the blood-greedy wolf from before, Yi Xian's true battle power was comparable to a third-order Universe Supremacy, and he even used the Blood Sea secret technique to activate the power of his avatar and condense 3 Blood Sea avatars of equal strength. It was equivalent to 3 third-stage Universe Supreme Beings besieging and killing Bloody Greedy Wolf alone. And Bloody Greedy Wolf was only a first-stage Universe Supreme. But in the end, he still managed to escape. Chapter 45-21. It's not just the minimum requirement of 5 pieces of Supreme Blood Essence. I'm afraid it won't be that easy to deduce the perfect formula of the level 28 Supreme Treasure Pill. As he muttered to himself, the look of helplessness on Bao Yuan's face grew stronger. The primordial era is different from the Universe Supreme realm. It's beyond the current Starry Sky realm, and it's related to the Chaos era that ended in the last primordial era. If that's the case, it won't be easy for me to break through the shackles of the Universe Supreme realm and reach the desolate Antiquity realm with just one elixir. Just based on this, I can see that the difficulty of deducing the level 28 Supreme Treasure Pill will surpass all the previous ones. I'll need to have a breakthrough in quality to complete it. As for the time, it's needless to say. I'll be lucky if I can successfully deduce it within a year. Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately ordered the devouring system in his body to transfer all the system's ability to deduce the perfect formula of the level 28 Supreme Treasure Pill. This matter had to be carried out with all its might from now on, so that the system was in the process of deducing at all times. Otherwise, when it really came to the time when he needed the level 28 pill formula, it would be too late to make a last-minute effort. After doing all this, Yi Xian waved his hand and took out 14 small jade bottles. He stored the 14 pieces of supreme treasure pills floating before him and kept them in his undying world. Then he stood up and walked out of the mouth of the farmer god cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog. With a wave of his hand, he kept the cauldron in his body and disappeared. After that, Yi Xian fell into deep thought. He was considering his next step. He had already refined a level 27 sovereign treasure pill, but his true power was only at the level of a first-level universe master. Even if he swallowed a level 27 sovereign treasure pill and became a universe knight, he would still be able to do so. It was too far away. Under such circumstances, the 5 pieces of supreme blood essence needed to refine the level 28 supreme treasure pill wasn't necessary to hunt now. In fact, with his current strongest combat power, which was only at the level of a third-level universe supreme, and with the techniques that he currently possessed, it was basically unrealistic for him to kill a universe supreme. Thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly thought of something. His eyes flashed as he muttered softly, "It seems that I can take advantage of this time to make a trip to the Mosquito Forbidden area." He was talking about the ferocious Mosquito Forbidden area that Xue Ben had gone to. It was a senior forbidden area with a universe supreme being guarding it. Previously, Yi Xian had already decided that once he had the battle prowess of a universe supreme, he would immediately set off for the ferocious Mosquito Forbidden Land. Now, in the state of the 9th change of the demonic ape, his cultivation level had reached the level of a 2nd-level Universe Supreme, and his combat power was comparable to that of a 3rd-level Supreme. Thus, the journey to the ferocious mosquito forbidden land was laid out before him. This time, he wasn't going to the ferocious mosquito forbidden land just to find out Shue Ben's whereabouts. More importantly, he wanted to see if he could find the ancestors of Old Devil Mosquito Butcher and the original body of Mad Mosquito Emperor, as well as the descendants of the mysterious guest from the home planet that they followed. Down. This person's identity was too mysterious. The bloodlines left behind by his followers in the 3 main dimensions of the starry skies were beings at the level of Old Devil Mosquito Butcher and the original body of Mad Mosquito Emperor. One could imagine how powerful he was. Now, Yi Xian could basically confirm that the original bodies of Mad Mosquito Emperor and Old Devil Mosquito Butcher had already entered the Hongmeng Void. Among them, the original body of Mad Mosquito Emperor, like Yi Xian, had entered a nest star to steal the Hongmeng fate of this Hongmeng era. When he was reborn, he would transform into one of the chaos demon gods that was born with the Hongmeng fate. As for the original body of Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, his whereabouts were still unknown, but according to Yi Xian's guess, he was either like the original body of Mad Mosquito Emperor, stealing the Hongmeng fate of a certain nest star, or he was in the hands of a supreme star domain that was controlled by the remnants of the primordial era. After all, he was a demon, not a ferocious beast, and should not be in a supreme forbidden land where ferocious beasts ran rampant. In addition to the 2 of them, the father of Mad Mosquito Emperor and Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, as well as the mysterious old man that they followed, was most likely in the ferocious mosquito forbidden land. After all, Shue Ben had said before that he felt the calling of 2 bloodlines in this Hongmeng Void. One of them was confirmed to be the Source Hive Star, where the true body of the Mad Mosquito Emperor, Shue Ben's father, was sleeping. The other was even more intense and ancient. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be the primordial ferocious beast that followed the mysterious old man. Mosquito. In other words, Shue Ben's grandfather. The reason why Shue Ben had decided to leave alone and enter the ferocious mosquito forbidden land was also for this reason. Since Shue Ben's grandfather was in the ferocious mosquito forbidden land, then the mysterious old man should also be in the same situation. Although Yi Xian still did not know the origin of this mysterious old man, he only knew that he was a guest from the mother planet who had entered the 3 main starry sky planes of the current era. One of his descendants had left behind the demon bloodline there, and the other had followed him. The primordial ferocious mosquito had left behind the Mad Mosquito Emperor's bloodline. Since then, this mysterious old man had left the 3 main starry sky planes of the current era with his descendants, as well as the primordial ferocious mosquito race. They had entered the Hongmeng Void and embarked on a journey to find the way back to the mother planet. But for some reason, Yi Xian always had a very strong intuition that this mysterious guest from the mother planet should be inextricably linked to him in some way. He even felt that many of the doubts in his heart would be answered one by one after meeting this mysterious guest from the mother planet. According to the information obtained previously, the ferocious mosquito forbidden land is a senior and supreme forbidden land, and the strongest person guarding it is only a universe supreme. As for the location, it is in the area behind the right half of the right bank of the Milky Way starfield, and from here, it is at least a few trillion miles away. After making up his mind, Yi Xian immediately fell into deep thought. With my current speed, if I rush at full speed, I can reach it in a dozen days or so. Saying this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Without hesitation, he rushed out of the star where he was cultivating in seclusion and entered the Hongmeng Void outside the star. Xiao. An extremely sharp sound broke through the air. At this time, Yi Xian was still in the 9th form of the 9 demon ape transformation bloodline technique, and his power was at the 2nd level of the Universe Supreme. Chapter 45-22. The reason why the ferocious mosquito forbidden land was named ferocious mosquito beasts was because more than 60% of the ferocious beasts that lived in the countless inhabited stars in this high-level forbidden land were ferocious mosquito beasts. As to why this happened, no one knew. No one could even be sure whether the strongest person in this mosquito forbidden area was a powerful mosquito beast or not. Even the outside world had no idea whether there was 1 or 2 Universe Supreme beings guarding the senior supreme forbidden land. However, one thing was for sure. Not only was there a Universe Supreme being guarding this advanced forbidden land, but this supreme being was definitely not an ordinary supreme being. This was because thousands of years ago, 2 powerful ferocious beasts at the level of Universe Supreme had come together and entered the ferocious mosquito forbidden land. No one knew what their purpose was. However, the cultivation level of these 2 supreme-level ferocious beasts was publicly known to the outside world. They were both at the 6th level of the Universe Supreme level. Level 6 was the pinnacle of the intermediate stage. One more step, and he would be able to enter the final stage of the Universe Supreme. At that time, when these two powerful peak middle stage supreme beings entered the ferocious mosquito forbidden land, countless ferocious beasts from other forbidden lands had witnessed it with their own eyes. Not long after, the sound of an earth-shattering battle could be heard from this mysterious forbidden area, and it lasted for a full month. No one knew what was going on inside, and no one knew whether the two peak mid-stage supreme beings were fighting against a single existence of the same level, or more. But after that, the two supreme being ferocious beasts at the peak of the middle stage never appeared again, and the news that came from the ferocious mosquito forbidden grounds was that they had died in the battle. As soon as the news spread, all the forbidden lands and star areas on the right bank of the Milky Way were shocked. That was a supreme being of the universe. Beings of this level all had powerful life-saving means. Even a first-stage supreme being would be hard to kill. What's more, two peak mid-stage supreme beings of the 6th step were killed in a single battle, at the same time. If this news was true, then the strength of the mysterious existence in this forbidden mosquito ground was simply shocking. However, no one was able to confirm the authenticity of the news. After all, even if these two universe supremes at the pinnacle of the middle stage didn't die, they wouldn't end up well. They would either be imprisoned in fierce mosquito forbidden land, or he was forced to use some kind of life-saving trump card, paid a huge price, and fled in a sorry state. If even they were like this, who would dare to easily enter the ferocious mosquito forbidden land and take the risk to seek this matter? It had been thousands of years since that incident. Since then, the already mysterious mosquito forbidden land had become even more mysterious. Basically, outsiders would not easily step into the starry sky territory of the mosquito forbidden land. Even when they were close to the edge of this high-level forbidden area, they still had to be cautious. However, in fact, although the ferocious mosquito beasts were the most numerous in the ferocious mosquito forbidden land, other ferocious beasts of various races were not rare in the ferocious mosquito forbidden land. Furthermore, in this mysterious high-level forbidden area, there were even tribes and planets that belonged to the survivors of the primordial era. All in all, the ferocious mosquito forbidden land was a place where there were a lot of different races in the starry sky. However, the beings that lived in this high-level forbidden area, whether it was the ferocious mosquito beasts of other races or the survivors of the primordial era, basically, they rarely went out, even if they wandered to the edge of the starry sky outside the ferocious mosquito forbidden land. Very few of them. Yi Xian had already understood all of this beforehand. Hence, although he wasn't a ferocious mosquito beast, as long as he was discreet when he entered, there shouldn't be too much of a problem. As long as he entered the ferocious mosquito forbidden land, everything would be fine. This was a rare and mysterious forbidden land where there were a lot of different races in the starry sky. It was obviously named after the ferocious mosquito forbidden land, but there were even survivors of the primordial era inside. Yi Xian entered in the form of a ferocious ape, so he wouldn't attract too much attention. That's right. He didn't plan to enter the ferocious mosquito forbidden land in his human form. Although there were actually star tribes of the primordial era in this high-level forbidden land, and there were probably quite a lot of them. After all, it was a high-level forbidden land, and the territory was too vast. Just the various life stars alone, there were probably dozens or hundreds of them. 10,000. However, it was still somewhat inconvenient for humans to walk around in their human form. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not possess the bloodline of the vicious mosquito race. Even if he changed his appearance, it was only in appearance. He did not possess the bloodline aura of the vicious mosquito race. Otherwise, he would have turned into a primordial mosquito like Shui Ben and entered the place. However, although Yi Xian did not have the bloodline of the ferocious mosquito, there were tens of millions of ferocious mosquito beasts in his blood mosquito war scroll. Moreover, after the last great leap in the life level of the war scroll, there were tens of millions of ferocious mosquito beasts in the blood mosquito war scroll. The mosquito beasts were no longer weak in terms of cultivation and strength. There were even many official-level undyings, and hundreds of emperor-level undyings. Although this bit of strength was not significant in battle, it was more than enough to use these tens of millions of ferocious mosquito beasts as scouts to gather information or to carry out some arrangements when entering the vicious mosquito forbidden land. It could be said that the existence of the blood mosquito war scroll and the tens of millions of ferocious mosquito beasts in the war scroll gave Yi Xian more confidence in entering the vicious mosquito forbidden land this time. Xiao! A faint sound of breaking through the air was heard, and an extremely fast beam of light shot over from the distant end of the void. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived and stopped abruptly at the back of an abandoned star.
A space raging ape appeared.
It was only about 3 meters tall, but the aura of cultivation that emanated from its body was extremely powerful.
It was a second-level universe supreme. This raging ape was Yi Xian.
In front of them was the border of the vicious mosquito forbidden land in another few billion miles.
Due to the outstanding reputation of this supreme forbidden land and its mysteriousness, very few outsiders came near it.
The ferocious mosquitoes, other ferocious beasts, and the survivors of the primordial era that lived in this supreme forbidden land rarely came out. Therefore, this supreme forbidden land was very long. The border of the starry sky territory had always been deserted. In this sort of situation, even if Yi Xian had shrunk his body to only about 3 meters tall, if he were to approach and rush in like this, he would most likely be exposed and be targeted by some powerful existence within the forbidden area.
Chapter 45-23. Whoosh!
With a faint sound of breaking through the air, Yi Xian, who had used the blood sea secret technique to transform into a tiny drop of blood, directly rushed into the fierce mosquito forbidden land. Because it was only a tiny drop of blood and Yi Xian had used the perfect vibration secret technique of mental power, although there were still some fierce mosquito beasts wandering inside the fierce mosquito forbidden land, none of them discovered Yi Xian's arrival.
It had arrived.
This tiny drop of blood, which had used the perfect vibration secret technique of mental power to conceal all of its aura, did not stop for a moment after entering the fierce mosquito forbidden land.
It kept moving forward at an extremely fast speed.
In the blink of an eye, it had crossed the border area and entered the fierce mosquito forbidden land.
In the hinterland of the forbidden land.
Along the way, Yi Xian saw many indigenous fierce beasts in the fierce mosquito forbidden land. In addition to the fierce mosquito beasts, there were also some fierce beasts of the starry sky of other races, including the fierce apes of the starry sky, which made him quite speechless.
But his heart was more at ease.
He even saw a few battleships of the ancient survivors in the void, which showed that the situation here was the same as the rumors outside, and that the fierce mosquito beasts were the main force. But there were also many fierce beasts of the starry sky of other races and the ancient survivors. In this way, whether Yi Xian appeared in the form of the fierce ape of the starry sky or as a human, there would be no problem, and he would not attract too much attention and suspicion.
Soon, a star area with many planets of life appeared in front of him.
Looking around, there were at least hundreds of planets of life in the distance. Going in and out of these planets of life were not fierce mosquito beasts, but other kinds of fierce mosquito beasts.
Fierce beasts of the starry sky of different races. Among them were the fierce apes of the starry sky.
With a thought, Yi Xian's tiny drop of blood, which was moving at an extremely fast speed in the void, slowed down in an instant. He chose to appear in this area in the form of the fierce ape of the starry sky, but in the beginning, his cultivation and strength should not be too high to avoid attracting too much attention. Finally, after figuring out the general situation in this area, Yi Xian would choose a target to kill, transform into his appearance, and replace his identity. In this way, in the future, he would be able to move freely in this mosquito forbidden area. Even if someone started an investigation, he wouldn't have to worry about his identity being exposed.
Yi Xian had never been so cautious before, but this time, it was different.
This ferocious mosquito forbidden land was too mysterious, and the most powerful being who was hibernating within it could even kill a universe supreme being.
Even Yi Xian had to be cautious.
At the very least, even if he activated the bloodline ability of the 9 demonic ape transformation in his body and pushed it to the 9th form, his power would only be at the level of a second-level universe supreme. Even if he used the power of the blood sea secret technique to form 3 blood sea bodies, it was still impossible for him to completely kill a universe supreme. Not to mention that there had been 2 powerful universe supreme beings who had entered this place, but there had been no news of them ever since.
That was definitely something that the current Yi Xian could not achieve. Yi Xian observed for a while.
Of the various races of space beasts entering and exiting the atmosphere of the hundreds of life stars in this area, basically all of them were at least at the undying level. And the ones with the highest power were at the level of emperors. Every time an emperor walked out of a life star and rushed into a distant void space, the surrounding space beasts that sensed his aura would all stop and respectfully wait in the void space until he left. Of course, this didn't mean that the emperors were the most powerful beings within these hundreds of life stars. At the very least, within a short period of time, Yi Xian saw a few emperors enter these life stars, which meant that within these hundreds of life stars, even though emperors were considered the upper echelons, there was still quite a number of them, and they definitely weren't the most powerful beings.
If there were no accidents, there should be at least a universe knight guarding these hundreds of life stars. Although it wasn't certain that every life star had a universe knight, there should be at least a few of them. And, if there were no accidents within these hundreds of life stars, there should be at least a few universe masters. From the looks of it, if Yi Xian were to appear with the strength of an immortal emperor, he would definitely attract the attention of all the fierce beasts nearby. At that time, once they saw that he was unfamiliar with them, they would immediately become suspicious. However, the number of emperors was much higher. Within a short period of time, Yi Xian saw at least a few dozen of them. When an emperor walked out of a life star, even though there would be space beasts nearby watching, the ones far away wouldn't. This was enough to prove that the emperors here were only small leaders and didn't have much influence. This meant that any emperor wouldn't be recognized or recognized outside his own territory. That was completely understandable, as he wouldn't attract the suspicion of any of the beasts. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian instantly made a decision. He would show an undying starry sky berserk ape in this area, then investigate and roughly understand the situation in the entire area. Then he would decide on the next step and the follow-up plan. Screech. After making the decision, Yi Xian didn't have time to do anything. He didn't even have time to release the blood sea technique and transform into a drop of blood. He didn't even have time to remove the perfect vibration of his spiritual energy. In the distance, in the direction of the extreme end of the forbidden mosquito land, there was an earth-shattering ferocious howl. The oppressive aura emitted by this violent howl was too shocking. Even Yi Xian, who was currently maintaining his cultivation as a universe master, felt his mind tremble as soon as he heard it. Without exception, the hundreds of planets with life in the distance all trembled slightly in the violent howl. Although the situation inside the stars could not be seen, all the ferocious beasts in the universe void outside the atmosphere of the stars, after hearing this roar at the same time, instantly crouched down in the void, trembling slightly. Even the emperors in sight were doing the same. Yi Xian was stunned for a short while. His heart was beating wildly, and his expression changed drastically. He almost cried out in alarm. A primordial great being. He was all too familiar with the force emitted by the howl. It was a primordial great being. After all, at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the Shenong cauldron within Yi Xian's body, there were still quite a few corpses of the supreme beings of the primordial era and the supreme beings of the primordial era within the giant sealed caves. How could he not recognize such an aura? Chapter 45-24. In the depths of the ferocious mosquito forbidden land, an earth-shattering roar was heard, and the one who made the roar was a powerful being from the primordial era. All of this caught even Yi Xian off guard. He was stunned on the spot, and it took him a long time to recover from the extreme shock in his heart. A powerful being from the primordial era guarded a top-tier forbidden land. And the ferocious mosquito forbidden land was a top-tier forbidden land, at least that was how the outside world saw it. Within a senior forbidden area, the strongest being guarding it should only be a universe supreme. But why was there a powerful being from the primordial era here? And judging from the anger in the roar, there might be more than one powerful being from the primordial era in the area where the roar came from. After all, how could a mere universe supreme be able to infuriate a primordial god to such an extent? Most likely it had to be a being of the same level. In other words, there were at least two powerful beings from the primordial era in this ferocious mosquito forbidden land. How was this a top-tier forbidden land? This was clearly a top-notch forbidden area. Even among the top-tier forbidden lands, this ferocious mosquito forbidden land was definitely one of the best. After all, some of the top-tier forbidden lands only had one powerful being from the primordial era guarding it. But here there were at least two of them. At this moment, Yi Xian finally understood why the two universe supremes who entered the ferocious mosquito forbidden land together had died here. It was indeed difficult to kill a universe supreme. For example, Yi Xian had used 3 third-level universe supreme blood sea bodies to besiege a first-level universe supreme enemy. But in the end, the enemy still used a secret technique to escape. But if the one who attacked was a powerful being from the primordial era, it was a different story. The two universe supremes had died here because a powerful being from the primordial era guarding the ferocious mosquito forbidden land had attacked. In other words, even at that time, this ferocious mosquito forbidden land was already a top-tier forbidden land guarded by a powerful being from the primordial era. This meant that at least one of the two powerful beings guarding this ferocious mosquito forbidden land was a veteran powerful being from the primordial era, and his cultivation level was definitely not at the early stage of the primordial era.
The reason for this situation was that the ferocious mosquito forbidden land was a top-tier forbidden land, but the ferocious mosquito forbidden land was a top-tier forbidden land guarded only by a universe supreme.
The reason was simple. Ferocious beasts from the outside couldn't get out once they entered. They were either killed or imprisoned.
The ferocious mosquito beasts from the primordial era resided in this top-tier forbidden land of the ferocious mosquito forbidden land, as well as other races from the primordial era, and the survivors basically wouldn't get out. Even if some of the stronger existences went out occasionally, they would not come into contact with other existences outside of the forbidden area.
So the news was cut off, and no one knew that this was actually a top-rate forbidden area, so it was completely understandable. What the F***ck was this? Originally, Yi Xian thought this was a top-tier forbidden land.
Even though he wanted to come in and check it out, he waited until he had the power of a universe supreme under the 9th change of the demonic ape transformation bloodline technique.
Take action.
This was because the most powerful beings in the advanced forbidden lands were all universe supreme beings.
With the same level of power, Yi Xian had the confidence to deal with any unforeseen events calmly. Even if he couldn't win, he could still escape. But now, the situation seemed to have taken a turn for the worse.
There were powerful beings from the primordial era here, and there was more than one of them. One of them was at least at the middle stage of the primordial era. Even under the 9th change of the demonic ape transformation bloodline technique, Yi Xian's power was only at the 2nd level of the universe supreme. Compared to the powerful beings from the primordial era who were at the middle stage of the primordial era, he was more than one level weaker. If he was targeted by the primordial era, it was still unknown whether he could successfully activate the interstellar coordinate jumping ability attached to the system in his body and escape.
After all, it wasn't the first time such a situation had happened before. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian fell into deep thought. Now that the situation had changed, and he had only just entered this mosquito forbidden land, he hadn't started his operation yet. It could even be said that he didn't even have a plan for what to do next. Since he didn't go in deeper, it wouldn't be a problem for him to leave quietly again. So, he was now faced with two choices.
One was to continue moving forward according to his previous plan, and appear in the form of a space-violent ape with the power of an emperor-level undying.
He would figure out the general situation of this area and then decide what to do next. What should he do next?
Otherwise, he would simply leave as he came and take advantage of the fact that he had yet to show himself and quickly leave this forbidden area for ferocious mosquitoes. When he had the 9th change of the demonic ape transformation bloodline technique in the future and had the power of a primordial era supreme being, he would enter to explore. Hundreds of thoughts flashed through his mind as he considered these two options.
For a moment, Yi Xian was in a dilemma. Whatever, since I'm already here, I'll just take it as it comes. So what if this is a top-tier forbidden land? As long as I don't provoke the two primordial era supreme beings and keep a low profile, there shouldn't be any problems. After some hesitation, Yi Xian finally made a decision. He decided to grit his teeth and take the risk to stay and act according to his previous plan.
On the path of cultivation, if I consider everything thoroughly and hesitate in the face of a little danger, how can I have the heart of a great being?
When he spoke up to here, he didn't hesitate any longer and immediately withdrew the blood sea secret technique with a single thought. The originally weak drop of blood instantly vanished and transformed into a 30 m tall starry sky ferocious ape. However, the perfect vibration of the spiritual power secret technique was still activated, perfectly concealing the aura around him. After doing all this, Yi Xian's attention shifted to the outside world. He found that in the surrounding void space, the various space beasts that were lying on the ground and shivering had all returned to normal one after another. Because after the roar of the Desolation Era Almighty being sounded, there was no follow-up movement. The powerful pressure in the void gradually dissipated, and only then did the ferocious stars beasts break free from their trembling state. After a round of investigation and confirming that all the surrounding space beasts had returned to normal and that there were no longer any abnormalities, Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He still maintained the perfect state of the mental energy secret technique and quickly rushed to the back of a life star. Chapter 45-25. Xiao.
A weak breaking sound resounded as a 30-meter-tall space berserk ape rushed out from the back of a life star, appearing in the environment of this region. The aura emitted from his body was impressively that of a rank 3 emperor.
This berserk ape was Yi Xian.
As soon as he appeared from the back of a planet with life, some of the ferocious beasts of different races in the vicinity sensed his aura.
Very quickly, these space beasts looked at Yi Xian.
Those with cultivation levels lower than the undying emperors had even stopped moving. Among the ferocious beasts of various races within a radius of several 100 million miles, there were 2 emperor-level insectoids and 2 emperor-level ferocious apes. They didn't stop when they saw Shi Yan appear. They continued to move in the same direction. However, they all turned to look at Yi Xian and nodded slightly, as a form of greeting. Yi Xian was slightly nervous. He naturally wasn't afraid of these ants, but he was worried that he would be seen through and attract the attention of the ancient beings in this mosquito-forbidden zone. Carrying this nervousness, he mimicked the 4 emperors and slowly walked towards a life star. He didn't stop and only nodded at them as a form of greeting. Very quickly, the 4 emperors were far away, and the surrounding space beasts within a few 100 million li of space returned to normal, no longer paying attention to him. The first time he made his debut, Yi Xian easily withstood it. This caused his confidence to instantly soar, and he was filled with confidence. However, this was only the first step. It was merely a transitional step. It was impossible for Yi Xian to merely use the strength of an immortal emperor to walk through this forbidden area of mosquitoes. If that was the case, he wouldn't be able to find the whereabouts of Shui Ben or find out anything related to the mysterious visitor from the mother planet. These weren't things an emperor-level undying could come into contact with. If he wanted to come into contact with these things, Yi Xian had to at least have a reasonable identity as a universe knight, preferably a universe master. Moreover, it would be best if the owner of this identity was a starry sky violent ape like him. That way, there would be no need for him to change the aura of his bloodline. That way, even if the 2 primordial era almighty figures in this ferocious mosquito-forbidden land noticed him and began to investigate him. However, he couldn't expose himself. This was because he had the demon ape bloodline in him, which was the same bloodline as the space berserk ape. Although there were hundreds of planets with life in this area, they were not crowded in one place. Instead, they were scattered. Basically, there were only 3 or 4 planets with life in the void of the universe within a radius of several 100 million miles. The space beasts entering and exiting these life stars were of various races. This was something Yi Xian had noticed before. Among the various space beasts in the entire area, there were starry sky berserk apes. Yi Xian had long since noticed that the starry sky berserk apes that appeared in the void were basically entering and exiting the atmosphere of a few of the life stars. If he wasn't mistaken, the most powerful beings guarding these life stars should be space berserk apes. After all, although this mosquito-forbidden zone was like a hodgepodge with all kinds of space beasts and even ancient survivors, they were basically all living in groups. At this moment, the target star Yi Xian was heading toward was one of these life stars where a large number of space berserk apes were entering and exiting. He was looking for a powerful space berserk ape, which had to be at least a universe knight, preferably a universe master. Then he would find a way to get close to it, kill it quickly, and replace it. After doing all this, Yi Xian would have an official and reasonable identity in this mosquito-forbidden zone. This way, when he carried out other operations later on, he could avoid all kinds of troubles as much as possible. Xiao! A faint air-breaking sound was heard, and Yi Xian transformed into a beam of light. After arriving at the target star, he didn't hesitate at all. He passed through the atmosphere and entered the star. Everything in front of him suddenly became clear. The spirit energy of this star wasn't considered dense. There were green mountains and rivers, and it was full of life. Although there were some space beasts of other races in this star, at a glance, more than 80% of them were space berserk apes. Of course, even space berserk apes had different sizes and appearances. For example, the human race, although they all had 1 nose and 2 eyes, their appearances were still different. After entering, Yi Xian was even more inconspicuous. An emperor-level undying was probably just a small leader in this top-level forbidden zone. Yi Xian looked around. Even within this star, there were many emperors. This scene was definitely not something the beginner and intermediate forbidden zones Yi Xian had encountered before could compare to. Even the so-called senior forbidden lands guarded by universe supreme beings were far inferior to this. However, the star field within this star was a bit strange. Yi Xian tried, but his emperor-level spirit energy couldn't envelop the entire star. This was most likely due to the fact that the soil contained too many magnetic minerals. If that was the case, it would be a little troublesome for him to investigate the details of this entire star. He had to go to more places and investigate separately. However, Yi Xian didn't choose to do so. After pondering for a while, he secretly activated the bloodline ability of 9 Devil Ape and performed it to the 9th form. Of course, at the same time, He also activated the Blood Sea technique and the perfect vibration spiritual power. Hence, although the bloodline ability of 9 Devil Ape was performed to the 9th form, Yi Xian's body didn't change. He was still only 30 meters tall. Although the cultivation level within his body had instantly reached the 2nd level of the Universe Supreme Realm, due to the perfect spiritual energy concealment technique, the current Yi Xian's cultivation level aura was still the same as before.
He was the Emperor Realm. Level 3 Undying.
However, in fact, he already had the terrifying spirit energy of a Level 2 Universe Supreme level. Without any hesitation, Yi Xian activated his spirit energy to the maximum. Under the premise of concealing his aura as much as possible, he completely enveloped the interior of this life star. Almost instantly, the entire situation of this life star was recorded in Yi Xian's mind. His spirit was instantly shaken because he had discovered the strongest expert guarding this life star through his divine sense.
It was indeed a space-raging ape.
Under normal circumstances, it wasn't very big, only about 1,000 feet tall. However, its power was extraordinary. It was a 6th-level Universe Master, and it was only one step away from reaching the advanced stage of this level.
Chapter 45-26.
As Yi Xian silently activated the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape within his body to the 9th transformation, everything within the life star beneath his feet was instantly stored in his mind. In practically an instant, Yi Xian had already locked onto the position of the strongest person in this life star. It was a vast valley sandwiched in the middle by 3 huge peaks. This space-raging ape with the power of a 6th-level Universe Master really knew how to enjoy life. It was like spring all year round in this valley, and on its left, right, and back were towering mountains with countless spirit fruits. One could enjoy them at any time with a wave of the hand. And in front of the last valley, there was a vast sea. Although the ocean was undulating, there was not a single space beast to be seen, both on the surface and under the water. Obviously, this expansive sea was used by this formidable violent ape to admire the scenery. As a Starsky violent ape with a violent temper, this fellow had rather refined interests, and the places it chose for its lair were all valleys with a seascape, and it was truly beautiful and pleasing to the eye. Unfortunately, all this was meaningless, because he had been targeted by Yi Xian today, and he was destined to die here. Although the current Yi Xian was only 30 meters tall, he had given up on his enormous body of 60 million kilometers. It could be said that his boundless vital energy and blood had the effect of increasing his cultivation by 1 level. Even so, on the surface, he was only a 3rd-level Undying Emperor, but the power surging within his body was still at the terrifying 2nd-level Universe Supreme level. Compared to this 6th-level Universe Master Raging Ape, who had not even reached the late-stage Universe Master level, he was much stronger. He only needed 1 strike to kill his opponent instantly. After retracting his spirit consciousness and making sure everything was normal, Yi Xian immediately made the decision to take action. Xiao. With a flash of coldness in his eyes, Yi Xian disappeared from the spot in the blink of an eye. Almost at the same time when he reappeared, he was already in the valley with a view of the ocean. The valley was vast, and there were no other ferocious beasts inside, not even a raging ape. There was only one blood-maned raging ape that was 300 meters tall, and it was taking a nap in the depths of the valley. This blood-maned berserk ape, whose entire body was like blood, was Yi Xian's target. It was a powerful existence that was overseeing the life star beneath his feet and had reached the 6th level of the Universe Master level. Although Yi Xian had perfectly concealed the power of a 2nd-level Universe Supreme level in his body with the perfect vibration of his spiritual power, he still showed the power of an Undying Emperor on the surface in order not to attract attention. This level of power was not concealed at all. Therefore, the blood-maned raging ape, who was taking a nap in the depths of the valley, immediately sensed his arrival. However, it obviously sensed the bloodline of the raging ape in Yi Xian's body, so it was not alarmed. It didn't even care. It didn't even open its eyes, as it was still taking a nap. After all, in this life star, it was the ancestor of the raging ape race. Since he was an ancestor, how could he possibly have any so-called vigilance towards an ant-like junior of the same clan? However, although it wasn't alarmed, this powerful raging ape, who obviously liked peace and quiet, was obviously dissatisfied with the sudden arrival of Yi Xian, who was only an emperor-level Undying, who was like an ant. His figure didn't move, and he was still leaning against the huge green stone that was like a throne, pretending to sleep. He didn't even open his eyes, but a voice filled with dissatisfaction instantly spread out and resounded in this vast valley. "Little brat, you're already an emperor-level Undying.
Yet you still don't know my rules? Scram, go to the space above the ape sea and self-destruct. Even though they were of the same race, space beasts rarely cared about blood ties. What's more, there were too many space berserk apes here. Any random emperor-level space berserk ape, even if it had blood ties with him, would be extremely insignificant. Weak.
Perhaps it was because of this reason that the blood-mane berserk ape sitting on the azure lustrous stone throne didn't have the slightest bit of pity for the clan's younger generation that had suddenly arrived and disturbed its rest.
For such a small matter, it actually wanted Yi Xian to self-destruct, and he couldn't even do it here, in case he dirted the place. He had to go to the sky above the ape sea outside the valley to self-destruct. He already wanted someone to die, yet he still wanted him to go to the designated place and commit suicide. Without a doubt, this raging ape was not only cold-blooded, but also extremely cruel. Even Yi Xian couldn't stand it anymore. Seeing that you're a raging ape, this Star Master felt a little uncomfortable, but now it seems that you only have yourself to blame. You deserve to die.
As the words that were filled with endless disdain came out of its mouth, the violent ape's shoulders shook, and its figure instantly disappeared from its original spot.
When it reappeared, it was already inside the valley.
It was only a few meters away from the blood-mane violent ape that was taking a nap on the green lustrous stone throne.
Only 5 kilometers. You.
At this moment, the raging ape finally realized that something was wrong, and its eyes that had been closed tightly suddenly opened, and 2 rays of blood-red light shot out from them as it glared at Yi Xian. Moreover, a strand of extremely powerful and terrifying aura instantly effused out from within its body, and it enveloped the planet beneath its feet in the blink of an eye. It caused the countless ferocious beasts in the other areas of the valley to lie prostrate on the ground in fear and shiver.
Unfortunately, that was all. Even though it had realized that there was something wrong with Yi Xian, it didn't have the chance to make a move at all.
Bang! There was no suspense in what happened next, and an enormous rumble resounded from the valley.
As the raging ape's figure shook, it directly smashed its fist forward. The raging ape didn't even have the chance to wail before its enormous body instantly exploded with a bang. In an instant, its body that was only around 300 m tall had completely exploded into a dazzling mist of blood that spread out. Swish!
After it finished all of this, the raging ape waved its hand at the first possible moment, and an extremely powerful and invisible force swept out from its body and enveloped the entire valley. The boundless mist of blood that had just spread out was swept over and absorbed into its body, and then it was immediately sent into the farmer god cauldron by Yi Xian to start the refinement of blood essence. At the same time, there was even a strand of the raging ape's soul within the spreading mist of blood, and it was directly absorbed by Yi Xian before he immediately started to search its soul. After a short few breaths of time, Yi Xian opened his eyes once more, and bright light flickered within them without end. Even though it was merely a strand of soul and didn't obtain much information from the search, Yi Xian still didn't know much about the situation in the ferocious mosquito-forbidden area. But at the very least, he had a sufficient understanding of the raging ape that he'd just killed.
Chapter 45-27. After killing the blood-mane raging ape with one punch, Yi Xian gained another drop of blood essence from Universe Master. However, he didn't care about it anymore. Ape Demon King was the name of this blood-mane raging ape. In fact, he wasn't just the most powerful being on the planet he was standing on.
Within a radius of 10 billion miles, there were dozens of life stars, and he was the leader.
Of course, within these dozens of life stars, there were other Universe Masters and Universe Knights. Among them, there were 3 Universe Masters, all of whom were 2 stars of this level. As for the Universe Knights, there were 10, and their cultivation levels ranged from level 1 to level 9 complete. It could be said that Yi Xian was quite lucky this time. He had randomly picked a life planet, and it was the best target. After sighing inwardly, he quickly transformed his body to a height of 1,000 feet. As he was originally in the form of a raging ape, he didn't need to change anything else.
He only changed the ape mane on the surface of his body to the color of blood.
This way, he looked exactly like the blood-mane raging ape he had just killed.
Of course, there was also the cultivation level.
Yi Xian's original cultivation level was at level 1 Universe Master. After activating the 9 Devil Ape Changes bloodline within him, he became a level 2 Universe Master. Now, he needed to reach the power of a 6th level Universe Master to activate the bloodline technique of 9 Devil Ape to the 4th transformation. After all this was done, Yi Xian was no different from the blood-mane raging ape from before in terms of body size, appearance, cultivation level, and even the aura of the raging ape changes bloodline.
Although other universe masters, such as those from the Bug Clan, could also transform into this form, they couldn't withstand detection, and the great beings of the primordial era could still see some clues. However, this problem didn't exist for Yi Xian at all. He had the raging ape changes bloodline within him, so everything was very real. After everything was done, Yi Xian lowered his head and looked at himself. Everything was flawless, without a single flaw. At this moment, his heart, which had been in his throat all this time, finally settled down completely. As his heartstrings relaxed, even his state of mind subconsciously improved a little. After a long period of high tension, it was understandable that his heartstrings would suddenly relax. However, to Yi Xian, this was a pleasant surprise. This was because the improvement of his mental state meant that his opportunity to make another breakthrough had arrived.
"That's good," said Luo Feng. "I'm only a first-level universe master now.
The sooner I break through to the 9th level Universe Master level, the sooner I become a Universe Supreme Master, the sooner I can become a Universe Supreme Master. The 9th transformation of 9 changes of Demon Ape will allow me to possess the power of a great being from the primordial era.
Combat power. In this way, even in this forbidden mosquito ground, there is no need to be overly cautious. Even if I still keep a low profile and be careful, at least, my confidence is completely different." At this point, Yi Xian didn't say anything else. He suddenly decided to take advantage of this opportunity to start another round of closed-door cultivation and break through to become a second-level universe master. Swish! After making his decision, Yi Xian's figure flashed and directly entered a huge cave at the bottom of the mountain behind the valley. This was obviously the place where the blood mane ape was in seclusion. However, it had now fallen into Yi Xian's hands. The space inside was very large, and there were many top-grade treasures, medicines, and equipment refinement materials. After all, the blood mane ape was a 6th-level universe master and was only one step away from becoming a late-stage universe master. It was still very rich. Without any hesitation, Yi Xian waved his hand and swept up all the treasures, keeping them in his undying world. Then he waved his hand and sealed the cave entrance. After setting up layers of isolation seals, he took out the farmer god cauldron. Of course, it was a smaller version. Shape. Swish, swish, swish. With a step, Yi Xian entered the mouth of the farmer god cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog. Then he waved his hand, and in an instant, the sound of air breaking rang out. Rays of light shot out and hovered in front of him. They were all cultivation resources he took out from his undying world. Origin. Including the blood essence of Universe Master that he had obtained from killing the blood mane ape. He also took it out and prepared to consume it as a cultivation resource. This way, he could guarantee a smooth breakthrough. In any case, he already had enough level 27 supreme pills, 14 of them, so he didn't need to store the blood essence for the time being. Very soon, Yi Xian activated the power of the farmer god cauldron's domain and compressed all the cultivation resources to the size of a nascent soul fist. With a wave of his hand, he swallowed them into his stomach. Walala! As expected, the sound of chains covering the sky and earth instantly rang out in his body. However, this time, there was still only one shackle that appeared. Yi Xian concentrated and activated the large river of energy that had just formed in his body. He began to circulate it in his 100 meridians, accumulating power. A heart-wrenching pain instantly engulfed his entire body and mind, but to Yi Xian, it was still nothing. He had long since gotten used to it. Time slowly passed. Under Yi Xian's wholehearted attention and full circulation, this time, it only took him about a day and a half to completely refine the large river of energy in his body. Yi Xian only had to attack once, and this incomparably thick shackle had already broken. When this shackle was completely broken, the anticipated system notification rang out in Yi Xian's mind very quickly. Ding! Congratulations, host, on a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient cave void technique. Current realm. 2nd level Universe Master. Ding! Congratulations, host, on a breakthrough in the realm of the physical body's blood essence. Current realm. 2nd level Universe Master. 2nd level Universe Master. This breakthrough had undoubtedly caused Yi Xian's combat power to soar again. Previously, his original body's power had been at the 1st level Universe Master level. Once he activated the bloodline power of the ancient demon ape in his body, he could climb to the 2nd level Universe Master level. And if he used the 9 demon ape transformations again and reached the 9th transformation,
his combat power would immediately soar to the second-level Universe Supreme level. But now, with the completion of this breakthrough, Yi Xian's power would instantly reach the third-level Universe Master level after activating the bloodline power of the ancient demon ape. If he used the bloodline power of the 9 demon ape transformations again, he would directly enter the 9th transformation. His power would reach the third-level Universe Supreme level. This was already the pinnacle of the initial stage of this level. If he went one step further, he would be able to step into the intermediate stage of the Universe Supreme level. In fact, if one were to include the terrifying power of blood and energy in his enormous body under the 9th transformation of the violent ape, Yi Xian's true combat power would basically be comparable to that of a 4th-level Universe Supreme level. In other words, at this point, any initial stage Universe Supreme level who encountered him would end up dying or fleeing in a sorry state. Even if it was an intermediate stage Universe Supreme level, whether it was a 5th-level or 6th-level Universe Supreme level, Yi Xian could already fight head-on and ensure that he would not be defeated.
Chapter 45-28. In just 1.5 days, Yi Xian successfully made another breakthrough. Now, his cultivation level had reached the level of a second-stage Universe Master. If he were to perform the 9th transformation of the bloodline technique of 9 demon ape, he would instantly possess the terrifying combat power of a 3rd-stage Universe Supreme Master.
Xiao.
After calming down, Yi Xian waved his hand and stood up. He walked out of the entrance of the Shen Nong cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog. With a wave of his hand, he put the Shen Nong cauldron into his body. Immediately after, he removed all the layers of isolation restrictions that had been set up previously. After opening the cave, Yi Xian stepped out. The aura of a 7th-stage Universe Master in his body was instantly activated to the maximum. Howl. After walking out of the cave on the mountain wall and into the valley outside, Yi Xian raised his head and let out a ferocious roar. He was filled with boundless joy. Since he had made a breakthrough, he should let the outside world know. At this moment, as the powerful aura of a 7th-stage Universe Master in his body completely spread out, the star beneath his feet trembled slightly. Countless space beasts within the star all prostrated themselves on the ground, trembling in fear. At the same time, light exclamations of surprise resounded throughout the star from time to time, and they revealed joy and excitement. Their ape demon emperor had finally made a breakthrough. From a 6th-stage Universe Master to a 7th-stage Universe Master, he had become a powerful late-stage Universe Master. This was naturally something to be happy about. Yi Xian was extremely satisfied with such an effect.
However, after letting out a roar, he ignored them and sat down on the green lustrous stone throne in the valley.
He was thinking about his next move. Although he had successfully obtained the identity of the demonic ape king, it was only a foundation for everything that came after. He had 2 goals for entering this top-tier forbidden area, and one of them had yet to be carried out. To be honest, there was no progress at all. Naturally, he couldn't delay for too long. At this moment, there was a familiar throbbing in his body. It was the movement of Yen Luo. Yi Xian's heart skipped a beat. With a wave of his hand, he immediately took out Yen Luo. Xiao! A weak sound of breaking through the air rang out as Bao Luo whizzed out and expanded in the wind. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a pink silk that was over 300 meters long. It slowly rose and fell in the air in front of Yi Xian, emitting an extremely powerful and mysterious aura. Almost at the same time Bao Luo was summoned, Fairy Xiao's voice rang out. It was gentle and pleasant, and it made one's bones feel lighter. Master, the gains from this time seclusion are too great. My sisters have all broken through. At Universe Night level. What? Yi Xian stood up in shock. He stared blankly for a moment, then an expression of ecstasy appeared on his face. He had been waiting for this day for far too long. The 7 beautiful cultivators of the primordial era in the Yen Luo were Hamba Corpse Ancestor, Ho Qing Corpse Ancestor, Desolate Electro Lady, Fairy of the 9 Heavens, 9-tailed Celestial Fox, Celestial Phoenix Maiden, and Xixia Fairy. The 7 of them were once the most beautiful in the primordial era. They were known as the 7 beautiful cultivators of the primordial era, and they were famous for a time. Later on, the Great War of the primordial era broke out, and the 7 beautiful cultivators all fell. However, each of them had a trace of consciousness origin sealed within the primordial treasure Yen Luo. Countless years later, this treasure was obtained by Yi Xian. During that time, they went through various dangers and obstacles. Until today, the 7 beautiful cultivators of the primordial era,
who were once famous in the primordial era, had finally all become universe knights after reuniting. Of course, the 7 beautiful cultivators of the primordial era were all powerful beings of the primordial era. Although they had now recovered their powers of the universe knight level, they were still a distance away from the primordial era. He was still a distance away from the pinnacle of his previous life, but he was not too far away. After all, after becoming a universe knight, he would become a universe master, a universe supreme, and after that, he would be able to reach the primordial great power level. In other words, the 7 beautiful cultivators of the Yenluo were only 3 realms away from recovering their powers of the primordial era. With the amount of top-notch resources that Yi Xian had provided for them, in addition to the speed of their recovery, it was possible that they would be able to reach the primordial era in just 3 sessions of deep sleep. Thinking up to this point, Yi Xian's breathing became heavy, and his chest rose and fell. He was obviously very excited. He was looking forward to that day. Once it came, he would have 7 powerful beings of the primordial era under his command. This would definitely be a terrifying army that could sweep across the primordial era. Throughout the ages, it was rare to see such a luxurious scene. Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. Just as he was feeling excited, a series of weak sounds broke through the air. From the space in front of him, 7 figures rushed out of the Yenluo. In the space in front of Yi Xian, they lined up in a row. They were the 7 beautiful cultivators of the primordial era. These were the 7 beautiful cultivators of the primordial era. No matter which one it was, they were all extremely beautiful and had outstanding figures. At this time, at a glance, they gave people the feeling that even if they grew a pair of eyes, they would not be enough. Although they'd already come into contact with each other quite a few times, Yi Xian still couldn't control himself. His heartbeat faintly accelerated, and even his breathing quickened. His nose seemed to be slightly itchy, and blood seemed to be about to flow out at any moment. "Greetings, Master." As their bodies appeared, the 7 beautiful cultivators of the primordial era smiled and bowed to Yi Xian. They softly called out, "Master." Shortly after, they discovered Yi Xian's current level of power. Thus, one after another, soft voices sounded like a tide. "Rise. See. Master, your power actually improved so quickly? How long has it been since we last met? You actually soared to the 7th level of Universe Master? Originally, I thought that just recovering our power from our previous lives was already considered extremely fast. Who would have thought that compared to Master, it was not enough at all? That's right, that's right. We swallowed so many 9-colored godly medicines and tried our best to break through in our sleep, but we only recovered our power to the Universe Knight level. Master has already become a late-stage Universe Master. This is obviously not the same speed. It seems that staying by Master's side will make us cultivate faster. Sisters, why don't we not sleep in the primordial era anymore? Why don't we just stay by Master's side? Perhaps it won't be long before we recover our power to the pinnacle of our previous lives. After saying a few words, the group of girls started chattering and laughing from time to time, causing Yi Xian to be speechless. Stop fooling around. I know what you mean. Depressed, Yi Xian helplessly rolled his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he took out a large amount of 9-colored godly medicines from the sealed cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space within the Shin Gnome Cauldron. Just like last time, he divided them into 7 portions, each of which was tens of thousands of cubic meters. This way, the batch of 9-colored godly medicines that Yi Xian had refined previously was suddenly reduced by a small half. It was like a huge weight, and this was the second 1/5. Xiao. Chapter 45-29. It had to be said that even Yi Xian himself felt the pinch when he gave away these 7 pots of 9-colored godly medicine that were tens of thousands of cubic meters. Although it was not a problem to refine the 9-colored godly medicine, every time it was refined, it had to consume the remains of many powerful primordial beings. Although Yi Xian still had quite a few corpses from the primordial era in his possession, there weren't many supreme beings from the primordial era. Unfortunately, it was the remains of a primordial being at the level of a quasi-primordial being, which was a 9th-level pinnacle universe supreme being. If he were to use it to refine the 9-colored godly medicine, he was afraid that the efficacy would be slightly reduced. As for the more powerful primordial supreme level remains, although he had some, the headless infant corpses were not allowed to be used. Last time, the 9-colored godly medicine he refined, including the ones he threw out this time, had consumed 40% of the 7-colored godly medicine.
The remaining 60% had been consumed by Yi Xian himself and his subordinates. It was about half. In other words, he only had a total of 40% of the 9-color divine medicine that he refined last time. Fortunately, it was not a problem to hold on until Yi Xian broke through to the Universe Supreme level. He did not need so much xiao.
Xiao. As the 7 pots of 9-colored godly medicine that were tens of thousands of cubic meters were taken out by Yi Xian and suspended in the air in front of him, a faint sound of breaking through the air was heard again.
These 7 girls were clearly used to it, and they were not polite at all. With a wave of their snow-white arms, they instantly put these 7 canopies into the 9-colored godly medicine, which could make countless universe knights go crazy for it in the outside world, and they gently put it away. They entered their bodies. Then, as if what they had just done was a trivial matter, they turned their heads and looked around as if they did not know what to do. While looking at the surroundings of the valley, they continued to chatter incessantly. "Hey, where is this? Master, the scenery is not bad. There are so many violent apes. At least 70% of the beasts in the entire star are space violent apes. Master, are these all your cubs? They are so good at giving birth. Outside this star, there is a faint extraordinary aura. Hiss! There is a brilliant galaxy in the distance. It looks like the Milky Way starfield where the mother planet is. No, it is not just similar. That is the Milky Way starfield where the mother planet is. Back then, during the Great War of the Ancient Era, the entire Milky Way starfield flew together with the mother planet. No one knows where it is. Who would have thought that it would appear again in this life? Hongmeng Void. It turns out that the Milky Way starfield flew to Hongmeng Void. So many powerful auras. There is an extremely familiar aura in the deepest part of this star field. That's right. Although it is obscure, it is definitely that old man from back then. Sisters, we've found the culprit. Our great enemy is still alive. He's lived from the ancient era to the present, and he's been hiding in the deepest part of this starry sky. The 7 girls had all recovered their universe night level power. Out of curiosity, they extended their godly senses to the outside of the star and even to the outside world through the edge of this mosquito-forbidden land. They saw the right bank of the Milky Way star field in the distance. During this process, the 7 girls were exploring and discussing the things and sights they had found with their godly consciousness. Although it was inappropriate, they were still in the mosquito-forbidden land. However, Yi Xian didn't stop him too much. After all, this was a top-notch forbidden area. There were quite a few universe masters, and even more universe knights. Even if there were a few universe knights probing in the void with their divine senses, it was impossible for them to attract the attention of the mosquito-forbidden area. It would attract the attention of the 2 primordial beings in the deepest part of the forbidden land. Otherwise, even the great beings of the primordial era who paid close attention to these things would be exhausted both physically and mentally. They would have long since passed out from exhaustion. Besides, the 7 girls had been sleeping in the internal space of Yu Luo, and it was rare for them to come out. Yi Xian knew that they were just looking for something new and would soon lose interest. Then, he would put them in Bao Luo, and everything would be peaceful. However, the development of the situation had clearly exceeded Yi Xian's expectations. An accident that he hadn't expected suddenly arrived without any warning. As the chatter of the 7 girls continued, they seemed to have caught a familiar aura in the void of this mosquito-forbidden area. According to the girls, this aura was very obscure and weak, but they were very familiar with it. It seemed that the aura had interacted with the 7 girls in their previous lives. And this kind of interaction was clearly not a friend but an enemy. According to the girls, the direction of this mysterious aura was in the deepest part of the starry sky, which was obviously the core area of the mosquito-forbidden land. If there was no accident, it should be the area where the primordial beings in the forbidden land were guarding. This was reasonable. This made perfect sense. After all, the 7 girls were all terrifying existences of the remote antiquity era in their previous lives. How could they be weak if they could become enemies with them at the same time and plot against them behind their backs? At the very least, it had to be a primordial being. It could even be a primordial supreme being or a half-step desolate master at the peak of the primordial level 9. After all, the 7 girls were reborn, and their power had not yet recovered. However, he had been alive all this time. He had lived from the distant desolate era all the way to the present. This was definitely an incomparably terrifying super-old monster. Even Yi Xian was shocked when he heard the words of the 7 girls. His eyes widened and his mouth slightly opened.
For a moment, he seemed to be stunned. While he was in a daze, the 7 girls who had caught the familiar obscure aura in the deepest part of the mosquito-forbidden land were instantly enraged. After looking at each other and exchanging glances, they reached a consensus in an instant. They turned their heads to look at Yi Xian at the same time. The playfulness from before had long disappeared. The expressions on the faces of the 7 girls were incomparably solemn. Their eyes were filled with determination, and there was even a hint of coldness and sternness in them. "Master, you should leave now and leave this place." "That's right. We sisters have encountered a great enemy from our previous lives, and it is an unresolvable hatred. We must take revenge. But we can't implicate our master because of this. The other party is very strong, and we may not be their match. But we can't avoid this battle. Our master has given us a new lease of life. We can die and return to the ruins, but our master must leave. Master, please fulfill our wish." Chapter 45-30. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the 7 girls were a little dumbfounded. They looked at each other, and although their faces showed anger, they did not dare to say anything to Yi Xian. In their hearts, Yi Xian had given them a new lease on life, and this master was not a casual word. It was a form of address. "Okay, let's enter the Bao Luo first, so as to avoid unnecessary attention when we were exploring with our divine sense. It would be troublesome if we were to attract the attention of a remote antiquity expert." As he spoke, Yi Xian raised his hand and pointed to the Yen Luo hanging in mid-air. "What is the specific situation? After entering the Bao Luo, we will communicate with our divine sense. First, tell me in detail." Seeing this, the 7 girls did not insist. After nodding, they all turned into streaks of light and entered the Bao Luo in an instant. Yi Xian did not delay any longer. With a wave of his hand, the Bao Luo was stored in his undying world. Then he extended his divine sense, rushed out of the atmosphere of the star under his feet, and entered the void of the universe outside the star. After investigating for a while and confirming that what had happened before had not disturbed any existences and attracted their attention, he was relieved. After withdrawing his divine sense, Yi Xian's figure flashed, and he turned around and walked to the green stone throne in the valley and sat down. It seemed that he was taking a nap, but in fact, he was secretly communicating with the 7 girls in the Bao Luo. Yi Xian was also very interested in the words of the 7 girls, and he was very concerned about them. This was related to the secret of a powerful existence in the depths of the mosquito-forbidden land. Perhaps it could uncover the mystery of his identity. He was not in a hurry to express his opinion, but asked the 7 girls in detail about what had happened that year. This time, the 7 girls did not chatter, and the other 6 girls all kept silent. Only the last of all, Fairy Xia, narrated everything that had happened that year. It turned out that when the War of the Primordial Era broke out, the 7 girls, who were the 7 beautiful cultivators of the Primordial Era, did not join any of the camps of the headless infant corpse in the primeval Heaven's Eye. In fact, they did not participate in that battle at all. They were not interested in it. But in the end, the 7 girls had all perished. Their bodies had either completely exploded, or because of some kind of secret technique or opportunity, they had left behind a damaged body. Only in this life were they retrieved by Yi Xian and rebuilt their precious bodies. In his previous life, the 7 girls were known as the 7 beautiful cultivators of the remote antiquity. But in fact, before they died, although some of them knew each other, they were not familiar with each other. Some of them did not have any relationship with each other at all. Intersection. As for why they were involved in the Battle of the Untainted Age, the reasons were different. Some of them had accidentally encountered a powerful enemy in the void. The other party attacked them first, and they were forced to fight back. In the end they died. Some had suddenly received some news related to some secret treasures or resources in the starry sky, and couldn't help but set out to explore. In the end, accidents happened and they fell in battle. Because of this, the 7 girls did not have any doubts about all this. They thought that the reason why they died was because they were unlucky. Even the wisps of remnant souls that they left behind after their deaths were all absorbed into the ancient treasure, Yuyen's silk net, and sealed within it. The 7 girls did not suspect anything before. They thought that this should be a powerful existence in the Untainted Age, the owner of the desolate antiquity. When he was walking in the starry sky, he encountered the remnant souls left behind after they died, so he conveniently collected them in the treasure net. It was pure luck. In the end, they coincidentally collected all the remnant souls of the 7 beautiful cultivators of the remote antiquity.
It wasn't until the end of the previous hibernation, and they woke up that the 7 girls were chatting in the Bao Luozhong. They talked about how they had fallen in their previous lives. Only then did they suddenly realize that they had discovered a huge conspiracy.
That was the 7 maidservants who had originally hidden away from the world and had no intention of participating in that great war. The reason why they all fell one after another was actually because there was a mysterious mastermind controlling everything behind the scenes. Because when they talked about the process of their deaths in their previous lives, the 7 girls discovered that before they died, they were involved in a great battle and finally died because of it.
It was all related to a mysterious existence.
It could be said that the death of the 7 girls seemed to be unsuspicious, but in fact, it was all the result of this mysterious person's manipulation and guidance.
Before they died, they all came into contact with a mysterious old man of the human clan.
Whether it was deciding to set out to explore a certain starry sky relic, or accidentally wandering in the void, encountering a strong enemy, and then a great battle broke out.
It was all related to that mysterious old man.
From this point of view, if there was no accident, that mysterious old man of the human clan should be the person behind the scenes who caused their deaths, and the remnant souls left behind after their deaths were all collected by the mysterious old man of the human clan.
Within the Yen Luo, there was no seal. However, the 7 girls didn't know how this Bao Luo ended up in the hands of Yi Xian and the 3 main planes of the starry sky. The 7 girls didn't know what happened during that time, so they couldn't guess or deduce it. But just now, when they used their divine senses to escape the atmosphere of the star under their feet and went to the void of the universe outside the star to investigate, they clearly captured a familiar aura from the deepest area of the ferocious mosquito forbidden area. It belonged to that mysterious old man of the human clan.
With the cultivation level of the 7 girls in the primordial age, it was naturally impossible for them to make a mistake about this kind of thing.
Besides, it was fine if 1 or 2 people made a mistake, but 7 people all made a mistake at the same time. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence?
Basically, there was no such possibility.
After understanding all of this, Yi Xian finally understood the feelings of the 7 girls at the moment. No wonder they were so excited just now. Even if they knew that the mysterious existence had a powerful cultivation level, they, who had only recovered their cultivation level of Universe Night in this life, were not a match for him at all. As long as they went, they would definitely die again. Pity. This kind of thing, no one would be able to stand it if it happened to them. In their previous life, they had been plotted against by the other party, but they had been kept in the dark all this time. It was only after they were reborn in this life that they unexpectedly found out the truth of the matter in an accidental chat. They suddenly realized that they had been deceived for endless years, and until their deaths, they had not realized the truth.
They had died in such a muddle-headed and wronged manner, so it would be strange if they did not go berserk when they suddenly found out the truth.
It's been hard on all of you. However, even if I understand your feelings now, I still want to stop you from taking revenge, at least not now. After all, it is also an opportunity to be reborn in this life. Shouldn't you cherish it? Chapter 45-31. After Yi Xian finished speaking, Bao Luo instantly fell into silence. It was obvious that the 7 girls were fighting with each other, and their hearts were conflicted.
In the end, perhaps it was because they had told Yi Xian everything that had happened back then, the anger that had suddenly ignited in their hearts had subsided a little.
Or perhaps it was because Yi Xian's persuasion had worked, making the 7 girls realize their impulsiveness and immediately go to him. Not only would they not be able to take revenge, but they would also be plotted against again. It was really not worth it. Therefore, after a short period of silence and internal conflict, the 7 girls all seemed to have thought it through. One after another, they expressed their views to Yi Xian. Master, we were wrong.
Although this matter is indeed very frustrating, and no one can bear it, we were indeed a little too impulsive just now.
If we rushed out so recklessly, not only would we implicate Master, we would also not be able to take revenge. Instead, we would be killed by him again. Wouldn't that be even more frustrating? Master is right. Since we have lived a second life, this is a great opportunity. As long as we are alive, we will be able to recover the peak cultivation of our previous lives one day. It is even possible to go one step further and enter the supreme ancient realm. When that time comes, we will definitely be able to kill that bastard. Only then can we take revenge.
Don't worry, Master. We will not be impulsive again.
In the future, we will do our best to recover our cultivation, and strive to recover the peak cultivation of our previous lives as soon as possible. After that, the 7 girls described the appearance of the mysterious human race expert they had met in their previous lives. They were very specific, and even Yi Xian could be sure that they had met the same person back then. However, as the 7 girls described the appearance of this person, Yi Xian sketched in his mind. When the 7 girls finished, the face that appeared in Yi Xian's mind made him tremble violently in an instant. He exclaimed in horror. What? Xingbo? The human race's technological pioneer Xingbo? This is impossible. Although Xingbo had been dead for tens of thousands of years, as a technological pioneer of the human clan, his portrait had always been preserved and was widely circulated in the 3 main planes of the universe. In particular, Xingbo had become a godlike existence in the immortal dynasty of the human race's science and technology camp. This was because the seed of the human race's science and technology camp had sprouted in his hands. It had grown step by step and finally reached its current state. Yi Xian had seen Xingbo's portrait before. Not only had he seen it in the immortal dynasty's capital, but many of the technology faction's administrative planets also had Xingbo's portrait hanging there. In addition, as long as you enter the Starry Sky network and search for it, you will get the results. Furthermore, those portraits of Xingbo were most definitely real. They had been left behind from several tens of thousands of years ago, before Xingbo had died. Therefore, when Yi Xian sketched out the appearance of the mysterious old man in his mind according to the description of the 7 girls, he immediately recognized who he was. But this was completely impossible. Caught off guard, Yi Xian was so shocked and exclaimed on the spot. This change was so shocking that even Yi Xian was unable to recover for a long time. It was not until several breaths later that his body shook and he realized something. Without hesitation, he immediately pulled out a large number of images of Xingbo from the information database of the devouring system in his body. He copied them with his divine sense and then sent them to Bao Luo. His divine sense voice was also heard at this moment, revealing a sense of nervousness and anxiety. Look, that mysterious old man from back then. Is it him? Without any delay, the 7 girls clearly recognized him at a glance. In an instant, a series of exclamations came from Bao Luo. That damned old man, it's him. He was the one who gave me the ruins in the starry sky, tricked me into going there and finally died. Yes, I'll recognize him even if he turns into ashes. Back then, when I was wandering in the starry sky, I accidentally came across him and a few of the clan's juniors and retainers by his side. We were just chatting for a while, but suddenly other strong enemies came, and I couldn't get away in time. And died. Master, why do you have his image? Do you know this old man? Xingbo? His name is Xingbo? Following these exclamations, Yi Xian's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. His face was gloomy, and his mind was in a complete mess. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. His body trembled and he immediately asked again, Right, what did you say just now? He was accompanied by a few of the younger generation of the clan, as well as a few retainer-like beasts. Yes, there were a total of 5 people. 3 of them were juniors like him, all middle-aged men of the human race. In addition, there were 2 ferocious beasts, a desolate fierce mosquito, and a weeping soul demon ape. What? There was a desolate fierce mosquito? Could Xingbo be that mysterious visitor from the home planet? This time, Yi Xian's exclamations were even more shocking. According to the 7 girls, the mysterious human race old man they met back then was not only the human race's Xingbo. It was very likely that he was the mysterious visitor from the home planet that Yi Xian had been looking for all this time. Because according to some of the information he learned from the demon emperor Mo Zhutian and after entering the primordial void, the mysterious visitor from the home planet did indeed have 5 people following him. To be precise, it was 3 people and 2 beasts. Among the 3 juniors, one of them had left behind a demon race bloodline in the 3 main planes of the universe. In other words, one of the 3 was the true demon race bloodline progenitor. Of the other 2 retainers, the desolate era fierce mosquito had left behind its lineage in the 3 main planes of the universe. In other words, the desolate era fierce mosquito was actually Shui Ben's grandfather, the father of the mad mosquito emperor. As for the other retainer beast, a thought flashed through Yi Xian's mind. He suddenly recalled the weeping soul demon ape he'd seen in the images of the Heavens Fall Bao's legacy in the Primordial War. Although that fellow was also a supreme of the Primordial era, he hadn't participated in the Primordial War. He'd merely watched from the back of a star in the celestial battlefield.
Whether or not that fellow had died in the end was still unknown. However, Yi Xian had obtained a Weeping Soul bloodhorn, so it should be the bloodline of this Weeping Soul demon ape. At that time, within the desolate ancient cage, a Weeping Soul demon ape whose bloodline had returned to its ancestral roots wanted to escape, but in the end, it was annihilated by the green eye clone of the desolate heavenly Tao.
Chapter 45-32.
As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian's entire body once again fell into a daze. His mind rumbled and he was in complete chaos. The sudden discovery was too shocking. Everything seemed confusing, making him feel like he couldn't believe it. But the truth was right in front of him, and it was impossible not to believe it. The person who murdered the 7 girls back then was the human race's technological pioneer, Xing Bo. There was basically no doubt about this. It was impossible for the 7 girls to recognize the wrong person at the same time. And Xing Bo was also the mysterious guest from the mother planet that Yi Xian had been looking for. This was basically confirmed. On one hand, both sides had 3 people, 2 beasts, and 5 followers, and among them, there was an ancient fierce mosquito. This was completely consistent. However, it was unlikely that there was such a coincidence. On the other hand, Xue Ben had said before that in this fierce mosquito forbidden area, he felt a bloodline summoning power that surpassed that of the Mad Mosquito Emperor's true body. The Mad Mosquito Emperor's true body was Xue Ben's father, and the aura of the bloodline density was stronger than his. It was the primordial ancestor of the fierce mosquito lineage, which was Xue Ben's grandfather. From this point alone, it was basically certain that the mysterious guest from the mother planet was in the depths of this fierce mosquito forbidden area. And just now, the 7 girls also caught a familiar aura. It was their previous life's great enemy, and it was also in the depths of the fierce mosquito forbidden area in front of them.
Could this be a coincidence?
How could there be so many coincidences in the world? Without a doubt, the mysterious guest from the mother planet was Xing Bo. What shocked Yi Xian even more was that the other of the 2 fierce beasts following beside Xing Bo was actually a Weeping Soul demon ape. This kind of existence was rare, and Yi Xian had a bold guess in his heart. Perhaps, the Weeping Soul demon he saw in the heaven-falling boughs inheritance scene was hiding behind a star and spying on them in the starry sky battlefield of the Great Desolate Era. The demon ape was the one beside Xing Bo. If that was the case, then it was too terrifying. That Weeping Soul demon ape was an ancient supreme like the Golden Divine Dragon. If he was just a retainer beast by Xing Bo's side, then how strong was Xing Bo? Also, he sent his retainer beast into the starry sky battlefield of the Great Desolate Era to spy on them. What was he planning? Including murdering the 7 beautiful cultivators of the Great Desolate Era, and sealing a wisp of their remnant souls into the Yanluo. Right, this Yanluo was in his hands in the end, and he happened to get the seed of the devouring system he created.
Thinking of this, Yi Xian trembled. He had a feeling that he had been schemed against him.
What made him even more uneasy was that he didn't even know about this matter. Just like the 7 great amorous cultivators, he had been kept in the dark. At the same time, the 7 great cultivators were probably confused as to why that mysterious human elder had plotted against them back then.
As for Yi Xian, he felt the same way.
He didn't know what Xing Bo was plotting, nor did he understand why all of this was related to him. It's a mess, a complete mess. As all of this flashed through his mind, Yi Xian felt bad. His mind was buzzing, and he couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he tried. However, the more he thought about it, the stronger the fear in his heart became. For a long time, he had been thinking about the mysterious guest from the home planet. However, although he felt that he was mysterious, he was not comparable to the headless baby corpse and the primeval heavenly Tao's green eyes. But now, as he suddenly understood so many secrets today, the mystery of this visitor from the home planet, Xing Bo, instantly soared by several levels. In Yi Xian's heart, he had already reached a level that was comparable to the headless infant corpse and the great desolate heaven. Dao Qing Yen was on par with him. It could even be said that compared to the headless infant corpse and the primeval heaven's eye, Xing Bo now made Yi Xian feel like there was a dagger in his back. Although the green eye of the primordial heavenly Tao was powerful, it definitely had various arrangements and would be fully activated very soon. At that time, the primordial world that had completely collapsed in that incomparable battle in the primordial era would completely descend into this world as a result. But all of this, although it involved Yi Xian, was not targeted at him.
The same was true for the headless infant corpse.
The reason why he chose to turn into a corpse lamp tattoo and attach to Yi Xian after meeting Yi Xian was because he saw that Yi Xian had a wisp of great desolate destiny. This was something that the headless infant corpse had already confessed to Yi Xian when he woke up the last time. To put it bluntly, he did not have any ulterior motives towards Yi Xian. He only wanted Yi Xian to be on the same side as him. With the help of Yi Xian's strand of luck that belonged to the primordial new era, he was able to defeat the primordial heavens in the final battle of the primordial world that had yet to truly end in the previous era and was about to descend upon the primordial world when the primordial new era began.
Dao Qing Yan. That was all. But Xingbo was different. He seemed to be plotting against Yi Xian. Otherwise, how could things be so coincidental? The Yen Luo that he had painstakingly created had fallen into Yi Xian's hands. The devouring system that he had created, the purpose of which was still unknown, had also fallen into Yi Xian's hands. Although all of this is too confusing, it seems like I can't analyze any results at all. I can't find any clues. After a moment of hesitation, Yi Xian took a deep breath and shook his head. He temporarily threw everything in his mind to the back of his mind. As he muttered softly, he turned his head and looked in the direction of the depths of the mosquito-forbidden ground outside the stars. A cold light flashed in his eyes. But all of this doesn't matter. At the very least, Xingbo's whereabouts have been confirmed. He is in the deepest part of this mosquito-forbidden ground. In the depths. Even if he is very likely to be an incomparably powerful existence, I can still grow quickly. Moreover, right now, he is in the light, and I am in the dark. I know of his existence, but he does not know that I have arrived. As long as I have time and find an opportunity, all of these mysteries will be solved one day. At this point, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with a cold light. In an instant, it burned to the extreme. Even the words that came out of his mouth were filled with endless coldness. If he had never schemed, it would have been fine. On the contrary, even if he is already a terrifying existence on the same level as the headless infant corpse and the primeval heaven's eye, this time, I will still kill him. Yi Xian's words were not empty words. He had the confidence. Because the new primordial era was about to begin, and in this new primordial era, among the 3,000 chaos demon gods that were still being nurtured, the strongest demon god that possessed the laws of primordial era was a seed that Yi Xian had planted, his strongest clone. Even before the new primordial era began, everything that belonged to the previous era would return to dust, to earth, and come to an end. Only a few terrifying existences like Xingbo, the headless infant corpse, the primeval heaven's eye, and the void giant tortoise could survive because of their own strength and various arrangements. Even Yi Xian's devouring treasured body and his original body had completely fallen the moment the new primordial era began. Chapter 45-33. Things are getting a little complicated now. After temporarily putting aside all the messy thoughts in his mind, Yi Xian once again sent a message to the 7 girls in the Bao Luo. Then he said, "The mysterious human elder who schemed against you all back then is very likely to be the human race's technological pioneer Xingbo. You all know that I have the devouring system he created in my body, and the Bao Luo is also in my hands now. It seems that his final target is very likely to be me. Moreover, he has another identity, and that is a mysterious guest from the home planet. It is said that he walked out from the home planet and came to the 3 main dimensions of the universe, and not only did he leave behind the identity of the human race's technological pioneer Xingbo, even the 3 people, 2 beasts, and 5 followers who followed him left behind 2 bloodlines of the demon and 2 bloodlines of the ferocious mosquito beasts in the 3 main dimensions of the universe. In short, everything is confusing, and I'm afraid that things are not as simple as we think." At this point, Yi Xian changed the topic. "But don't worry, I will definitely get to the bottom of this matter. You all don't have to worry about it for the time being, and first calm down and restore your cultivation. When you can restore your cultivation to the peak of the primordial age in your previous life, then you can help me. Of course, if you can go one step further than in your previous life and reach the supreme primordial age, then it will be even more perfect, and we will have more confidence." Hearing these words, the 7 girls fell into a short period of silence. Clearly, the shock in their hearts was also very intense. Previously, they had thought that the mysterious human old man had only plotted against the 7 of them and nothing more. But now it seemed that the other party's plot was far more than that, and they could not even guess what it was. Just as Yi Xian had said, he wasn't in a hurry to pursue all of this. Because even if they found out the truth, so what? Without the corresponding strength, even if they knew everything, there was nothing they could do.
No matter what, in the end, one's own strength was the most important. And the 7 of them, if they wanted to help Yi Xian, the only choice was to enter a deep sleep again and restore their cultivation to the peak of the primordial age in their previous life as soon as possible, or even go one step further and reach the supreme primordial age.
Thinking of this, the 7 girls did not hesitate anymore. After greeting Yi Xian, they quickly fell into a deep sleep one after another. There was no more sound coming from the Bao Luo. At this point, Yi Xian also let out a sigh of relief. He was very confident in the potential of these 7 girls. He believed that the next time they woke up from their slumber, their power as primordial antiquity knight would have improved again. It was very likely that they would return to the level of Universe Master. In this way, after 2 more hibernation, he would be able to return to the peak of the primordial era. After Bao Luo Zhong left the consciousness, Yi Xian immediately fell into deep thought again. He was thinking about his next step. Of course, the breakthrough and improvement of one's strength were extremely important. But he had just experienced a breakthrough.
In a short time, if there was no unexpected improvement in his state of mind, he was afraid that it would not be good for him to break through again. Besides, after a few big battles, he had completely digested and integrated all the gains from the previous breakthrough into his body. It seemed that this star under his feet was not suitable for him to continue staying here. If he stayed here and could not break through, wouldn't it be a waste of time? After thinking for a while, Yi Xian quickly made a decision. He decided to leave this place and head to the deepest part of the fierce mosquito forbidden land. Hong! Hong long long! Right at this moment, the star beneath his feet suddenly shook violently, and a series of earth-shattering rumbles resounded incessantly, shaking the heavens and shaking the earth. Yi Xian stood up in shock. He didn't hesitate in the slightest. With a flash of his body, he instantly arrived in the void of the universe outside the atmosphere of the stars. In fact, it was not the star he was on that was shaking. Instead, it was the entire cosmic void that was shaking. And the source of this violent shaking was in the deepest part of the fierce mosquito forbidden land. There was no doubt that some kind of shocking change had happened. Without any hesitation, Yi Xian's shoulders shook, and his entire body instantly turned into a ray of light, shooting forward. At this moment, he had a strong intuition that he had to rush over, or else he would miss something. Even if there were at least 2 primordial age almighties in the deepest part of the fierce mosquito forbidden land, and there was even a possibility that there was an existence stronger than the primordial age almighties.
Crouching. He did not hesitate. In fact, it was not only him.
In this vast and boundless fierce mosquito forbidden land, there were many existences who made this decision at the same time.
At this moment, it could be said that the clouds were moving in all directions.
Within this mosquito forbidden area, there were all sorts of different races of space beasts, as well as a large number of ferocious mosquito beasts, as well as ancient survivors. Today, within these races, the level of small leader and above, that is, the level of emperor and above, all belonged to their own races. They rushed out from the planets that they were guarding. As if they had made an agreement, they shot forward toward the deepest part of the fierce mosquito forbidden land. From a gigantic life planet, 2 human figures shot out. One was an old man, and the other was a middle-aged man. However, the auras of cultivation that emanated from their bodies were extremely powerful. They were actually late-stage Universe Supremes at the 7th level. In addition, in a few other fierce beast planets in another direction, there were several fierce beast planets with huge bodies roaring as they shot toward the deepest part of the fierce mosquito forbidden land.
These fierce beast planets were also Universe Supremes.
The most powerful one was at the 8th level of Universe Supremes, and the weakest one was at the 2nd level of Universe Supremes. In addition, several powerful fierce mosquito beasts also rushed out of the planets that they were guarding and shot in the same direction. These few powerful fierce mosquito beasts, without exception, were all Universe Supremes. He glanced around and saw a total of 20 Universe Supreme beings darting toward the deepest part of the mosquito forbidden land. There were survivors of the primordial era, ferocious mosquito beasts, and space beasts of other races. Other than these 20 Universe Supremes, there were also quite a number of Universe Masters and Universe Knights. Yi Xian, who had transformed into a 1,000-foot-tall violent space ape, was not at all eye-catching among them. As for emperors and emperors, they were as numerous as carps crossing the river. At a glance, there were at least hundreds and thousands of them. This was indeed a top-tier forbidden land, and it was one of the best of the best. It was very likely that it could even be compared with the supreme forbidden lands that stood at the pinnacle of the pyramid of space powers. Hong.
Chapter 45-34.
Hong. Hong long long. At the end of the void space ahead, the thunderous sounds continued, and they became even more violent.
It was as if the primordial void space was about to be torn apart. Such a shocking change had never happened before, even in a top-tier forbidden land like the ferocious mosquito Forbidden Land. The entire boundless void space of the Forbidden Land was alarmed, and thousands of undying emperors and above were swarming forward like a swarm of bees. Pouncing forward was proof of that.
As for the undying emperors and above, whether it was the primordial survivors, the ferocious mosquito beasts, or the various space beasts of other races, even if they had the power of a 9th-level emperor at pinnacle, they were only half-emperors. At this moment, without exception, all of them were lying down extremely silently within their respective stars, and they didn't dare make the slightest movement while shivering.
In fact, it wasn't just this ferocious mosquito Forbidden Land that was affected. The huge movement here had already spread to the outside of the ferocious mosquito Forbidden Land. It was unknown whether the left bank of the Milky Way had sensed it. Even if they sensed it, it wouldn't be too strong. Besides, even if they sensed it, they couldn't do anything because they were separated by the law of primordial void space. It was impossible to cross the Milky Way star field that was protected by the law of primordial void space. On the right bank of the Milky Way, all the supreme forbidden lands and star fields of different levels all sensed the disturbance within the ferocious mosquito Forbidden Land. At this moment, countless gazes in the supreme forbidden lands and the supreme star fields were fixed on the deadly mosquito Forbidden Land as if they had agreed to it beforehand. Among them, there were many powerful godly consciousnesses that rushed out from the supreme forbidden lands and star fields where they were guarding. They looked toward the ferocious mosquito Forbidden Land across the endless void space. They were all shocked and uncertain. Among them, there were both survivors of the primordial era and all kinds of space beasts, but without exception, they were all beings with cultivation levels above universe knights. Otherwise, under such a shocking change, they wouldn't have had the courage to extend their spirit consciousness and carry out a little investigation. They weren't qualified at all. There were too many godly consciousnesses like this, at least hundreds of thousands of them. Most of them were universe knights and quite a few universe masters, but there were a lot fewer of them at universe supreme level. However, some of the godly consciousnesses clearly showed the aura of great beings and supreme masters from the primordial era, and there were many of them. However, these divine consciousnesses were only looking into the distance across the endless void. None of them entered the fierce mosquito Forbidden Land, which was the focus of everyone's attention at this moment. Even the closest ones only extended their godly consciousnesses to the edge of the ferocious mosquito Forbidden Land and wandered outside the Forbidden Land. They didn't go in at all, as if they had realized something. At the same time, in the forbidden area for mosquitoes, this supreme Forbidden Land was simply too vast, and the void was boundless. Even at this moment, the tens of thousands of silhouettes rushing out from the life stars were all emperors, and the strongest were all emperors. His power had even reached the 8th level of the Universe Supreme. He was only one step away from becoming a Universe Supreme at Pinnacle Level 9, which was equivalent to a great being from the primordial era. However, at this moment, no one had arrived at the source of this sudden disturbance. Hum, long, howl, screech. It was also at this moment that the thunderous rumbling that had been going on in the depths of the forbidden land of ferocious mosquitoes, which was already extremely shocking, suddenly sounded again. This time, as the thunderous sound resounded again, a few shocking roars and screeches came from the deepest part of the ferocious mosquito Forbidden Land, which was the source of this sudden disturbance. At this moment, the tens of thousands of figures, including Yi Xian, that were shooting towards the deepest part of the forbidden land of ferocious mosquitoes, all trembled violently as they trembled. There were a total of 4 roars and whistles coming from the depths of the void in front of them. As these 4 roars and whistles sounded, 4 incomparably terrifying oppressive auras spread out from the depths of the void at this moment and pounced towards them. Among the 4 forces, 2 of them were great beings from the primordial era, and they should be mid-stage great beings between level 4 and level 5. This was basically the same as what Yi Xian had guessed before. However, what Yi Xian didn't expect was that the 2 mid-stage great beings from the primordial era weren't the most powerful beings in this top-tier forbidden land at all. To be more precise, this wasn't a top-tier forbidden land guarded by a great being from the primordial era. In a top-tier forbidden land, the most powerful being guarding it was a great being from the primordial era. And in the top-tier forbidden lands and star regions of the universe, the supreme beings guarding them were the supreme beings from the primordial era, who were at the same level as the golden godly dragon, the void tortoise and the primordial yaksha. The ferocious mosquito forbidden land that Yi Xian was in was a top-tier forbidden land.
This was because among the 4 powerful forces in front of him, apart from the 2 mid-stage great beings from the primordial era, the other 2 were even more powerful, supreme beings from the primordial era. Although they were only at the early stage of the first and second stage of the primordial era, they were far from being comparable to the primordial yaksha, the golden godly dragon, and the void tortoise, who had reached the late stage of the primordial era. But no matter how weak they were still supreme beings from the primordial era. Even in the distant primitive world, they were the most powerful beings. Their cultivation level was second only to the headless infant corpse and the primeval heaven's eye. Yi Xian couldn't afford to offend such an existence right now. In the other party's eyes, he probably wasn't even an ant. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian's slightly trembling body suddenly stopped in the void space as if it was a conditioned reflex. Then, completely out of instinct, he immediately performed the blood sea technique and shrunk the 1,000 zhong tall violent ape to the size of a drop of weak blood. That wasn't all. At the same time, he even performed the perfect vibration spiritual power technique to the extreme to hide his own force as much as possible. Xiao. At this moment, the 1,000 zhong tall violent ape disappeared. Even the force of the 7th stage universe master that had been extremely violent just now disappeared as if it had evaporated into thin air. Without a sound, a tiny drop of blood that had concealed all of its presence fled in the direction it had come from with a terrifying speed that surpassed the speed of light. Almost at the same time, at the end of the void space in the depths of the ferocious mosquito forbidden land, 4 beings suddenly shot up into the sky. The forces of cultivation coming out of their bodies belonged to 2 great beings from the primordial era and 2 supreme beings from the primordial era. Of the 4 beings, 3 were from the human race, and the other was a gigantic primordial mosquito. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian came to a sudden realization. This was obviously one of the 3 people and 2 beasts that followed Xing Bo. Chapter 45-35. Xing Bo had a total of 3 people and 2 beasts as his followers. However, only 3 people and 1 beast had appeared. The weeping soul demon ape that Yi Xian was most concerned about was nowhere to be seen. At the same time, Xing Bo himself was not present. Among the 3 people and 1 beast that appeared at this moment, the desolate ancient fierce mosquito and one of the old men of the human clan emitted the aura of the ancient supreme. This old man's face was quite similar to that of old ghost mosquito butcher. If there was no accident, he should be. Old ghost mosquito butcher was the father of his original body. As for the other 2 human clan experts, they were both middle-aged men in their 40s. Of course, this was just their appearance. Their real age was probably an astronomical figure. No one knew how long they had lived. They were truly super old monsters. The auras of these 2 people belonged to the primordial era. If nothing unexpected happened, then the weeping soul demon ape that was nowhere to be seen should also be the ancient sovereign. If that was really the case, then this ape must be the devil ape that Yi Xian had seen in the inheritance of the heavenly fallen bough that was spying on the battlefield. Yes. This proved that Xing Bo surely had some sort of shocking scheme. Otherwise, why would he send that weeping soul devil ape to the battlefield in the starry sky where the primeval and unparalleled battle that destroyed the primeval times all those years ago? Looking at the scenery? 2 of his 5 followers were primordial masters and 3 were supreme masters of the primordial era. So, how strong was Xing Bo himself? It was definitely on par with the primeval heaven's eye and the headless infant corpse. This was also the reason why Yi Xian had suddenly retreated. If it were just the primordial era, he might be able to escape unscathed. However, the primordial era supreme was here. This was a terrifying existence that was on par with the golden divine dragon, primordial yaksha, and spatial giant tortoise. What's more, there was still a Xing Bo who was more powerful than the primordial supreme and comparable to the primeval heaven's eye and the headless infant corpse in the dark. That's right, the headless infant's corpse was still on his body, but this guy had been sleeping the entire time. Although Yi Xian could feel that the headless infant's corpse was recovering its strength in this way, his cultivation was slowly becoming stronger. However, when he met Xing Bo, Yi Xian was not sure if he would attack this level of existence. The safest way to deal with it was to escape. The primordial era supreme and the primordial supreme had both appeared. This was definitely not an ordinary big event. If something went wrong, someone would definitely die. Boom! Rumble. Crack. Just as Yi Xian transformed into a tiny drop of blood and retreated with a perfectly oscillating mental energy secret technique, an earth-shattering rumble suddenly sounded out from the depths of the forbidden mosquito area in front of him. What followed after was the extremely clear sound of ripping silk. A crack appeared high up in the void.
It was extremely wide, bigger than the size of a giant star. Even the Shengnong cauldron in its full form could easily fit in this crack. At this moment, Yi Xian's scalp went numb. He suddenly had an extremely bad feeling.
The scene in front of him seemed to be the rhythm of an extremely terrifying existence that was about to descend. Yi Xian did not know who or what was descending, but he was sure of one thing, and that was that the other party was definitely not to be trifled with.
In fact, it was very likely that they were not to be trifled with.
After all, there were already 2 Primordial Era Supreme and 2 Primordial Supreme here, but the other party was still descending in such a domineering manner without the slightest hint of concealment.
It was easy to imagine how powerful the other party's cultivation was. Clatter. Just as Yi Xian's mind was spinning as he tried to guess who the descending existence was, the sound of rattling chains suddenly came from the huge spatial rift in the sky above the vicious mosquito-forbidden area. It was so familiar that he instantly understood everything. Netherworld Furnace. It was actually the Netherworld Furnace. The existence that was rushing out of the huge crack in the void was actually the Netherworld Furnace. At this moment, a sense of alarm rose in Yi Xian's heart. An incomparably strong sense of danger instantly arose. He had always been very wary of the Netherworld Furnace. Every time it appeared, it represented endless slaughter. Of course, what Yi Xian was really wary of was not the Netherworld Furnace itself, but the heavenly Tao's green eye that stood behind it. This was the primordial void. Although he already knew that the Netherworld Furnace had entered the primordial void through the forbidden land of Rising Sun, Yi Xian knew nothing about the Netherworld Furnace's true purpose in coming here. He did not even know whether it was the Netherworld Furnace's own actions or the result of someone manipulating it behind the scenes. If it was the latter, the primeval Heaven's Eye, which Yi Xian had always regarded as his greatest enemy, and whom he did not dare to face even after he had grown to such a high level, would most likely suddenly appear here. Because the primeval Heaven's Eye was behind the Netherworld Furnace. Clatter. At this moment, the clatter of chains was heard, and a huge cauldron like a star rushed out of the crack in the void high above the primordial void in the primordial void. On the surface of the cauldron, 20,000 huge rune chains were waving like spiritual snakes and giant pythons, emitting endless ferocious aura. Facing all this, the tens of thousands of emperor-level and above great beings of the primordial void forbidden land, who were swarming forward, were all shocked. At this moment finally, some of them began to retreat in horror like Yi Xian. Yi Xian could not be sure whether these fellows knew the origin of the Netherworld Furnace, but even if they did not, just the ferocious aura they sensed in front of them was enough to make them realize that the Netherworld Furnace was not to be trifled with. The reason why these powerful beings all retreated one after another was because they realized that something was wrong. The 4 supreme beings who appeared in the void at the end of the primordial void forbidden land did not react at all to all this. A huge primordial mosquito the size of a star and 3 great beings of the human race, a total of 4 figures, all stood quietly in the void. They slightly raised their heads and focused their gazes on the Netherworld Furnace that had just rushed out of the crack in the void. In the void. This scene seemed to be waiting for something, or rather, welcoming the arrival of someone. At this moment, a light flashed in Yi Xian's mind, and his entire body trembled slightly. The primeval Heaven's Eye. The 4 supreme beings who appeared in the void at the end of the primordial void forbidden land were waiting for the arrival of the primeval Heaven's Eye. What is their relationship? A murmur that sounded like a dream came out of Yi Xian's mouth. At this moment, the speed at which he retreated became even faster. At this moment, in the sky above the deepest part of the primordial void forbidden land, there was an earth-shattering explosion. Hong! Hong long long. Chapter 45-36. Hong! Hong long long. Kacha! Along with rumbling that shook the heavens and the earth, a second rift silently appeared high up in the sky at this moment. At this moment, Yi Xian's heart was pounding madly. His heartstrings were taut, and his breathing seemed to have stopped. He realized who the being that was tearing through the void and descending was. As expected, almost in the next moment, his guess was confirmed. Xiao! A faint sound of breaking through the void was heard, and a figure rushed out of the huge void crack. To be precise, it was a vertical eye. A vertical eye that was several times larger than a giant star, and it was green and misty. It was still closed, but it was already emitting a terrifying aura. Roar! Screech! In the surrounding void, the tens of thousands of ferocious mosquito beasts with cultivation levels above emperor level, the various races of ferocious beasts, and a small number of ancient survivors all roared in shock and fear.
Yi Xian wasn't sure if they knew the identity and origin of this giant vertical eye, but even if they didn't, they could roughly guess based on the terrifying aura that was emitted from it. This should be the original body of the Heaven Path Green Eye, because the aura that was emitted from its body had already surpassed that of ancient Desolation Supreme. It was more powerful than the golden godly dragon, the void tortoise, and the desolate ancient Yaksha, and it wasn't just a little bit stronger. It had a crushing advantage, and it was extremely clear. Previously, in the desolate ancient prison void, Yi Xian had also encountered a blood-red Heaven's Eye. Even when he was still so weak, he had already joined forces with the headless infant corpse to battle it and severely injured it. The difference in strength between that blood-red Heaven's Eye and this giant green eye was like heaven and earth. The former was earth, so it should only be a clone, and most of it was incomplete. Otherwise, how could it be so weak? As for the latter, which was the giant green eye in front of him, it should be the original body of the primeval Heaven's Eye. Its aura was too strong, even though Yi Xian had already grown to such a height. He who had transformed into a tiny drop of blood had already performed the bloodline ability of the 9 transformation demon ape to the 9th transformation, and had the terrifying battle power of a 3rd-level universe supreme. However, in front of this giant green eye, Yi Xian still felt inferior to an ant. One had to know that this giant green eye was still closed. It had never opened at all. Once it opened its eyes, its own pressure would be completely mobilized and spread out. At that time, what kind of scene would it be? As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian instantly felt a chill down his back. And his scalp went numb. Although he had always feared the green eyes of the desolate heavenly Tao and knew how powerful the other party was, and he had always thought that this kind of understanding was very profound, it was only now that he truly faced the green eyes of the desolate heavenly Tao. In the end, he still underestimated the other party. Its strength was far beyond Yi Xian's expectations. It was no wonder that it could experience the Great War of the Primordial Era and emerge victorious at the final stage. After that, it set up various arrangements and survived until now. It was the master of the Primordial Era. It was the god of the Primordial Era. How could it not be strong? After realizing this, Yi Xian shot backward even faster. Although it was invisible and traceless, it was faster than the speed of light. In the blink of an eye, he had traveled hundreds of millions of miles. He was already close to the area where the netherworld furnace and the primeval Heaven's Eye would descend. More than 10 billion miles away. In the next instant, his figure came to an abrupt halt. Yi Xian did not want to, but he had no choice. This part of the void was instantly imprisoned. It was like flowing water had instantly turned into solid ice. Buzz. A weak and incomparably low buzzing sound was heard. At this moment, the giant green eye that rushed out of the huge void fissure in front of them suddenly opened. A green light burst forth, instantly enveloping the void within a radius of 1 trillion miles. In this area enveloped by the green light, all the ferocious star beasts that were retreating, including Yi Xian who had used the perfect oscillation secret technique to restrain his aura. However, without exception, all of them came to an abrupt halt. At this moment, Yi Xian felt an unprecedented sense of danger. He was completely sure that the perfect oscillation secret technique would not be able to escape the illumination and detection of this green light. The moment the green light enveloped his body, despair had already surfaced in his heart. This was because once the perfect oscillation secret technique lost its effect, his sudden appearance would most likely attract the attention of the primeval Heaven's Eye. At that time, he might really be exposed. In a moment of desperation, he even directly issued an order to the devouring system in his body to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability as quickly as possible. He only wanted to leave this place immediately. However, when the order was issued, the devouring system in his body did not respond at all. On the contrary, he felt a burning sensation in his chest, a slight heat spreading through his body. At this moment, Yi Xian clearly felt a warm current flowing from his chest to the surface of his body in an instant. It was at this moment that the green light finally came into contact with his body. However, it passed through his body as if there was nothing there. There was no abnormal reaction. After being stunned for a moment, Yi Xian instantly heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that at the critical moment, the headless corpse still made its move in the end. A strange energy flowed out from the corpse lamp tattoo on his chest, protecting Yi Xian's body. It even prevented him from being detected by the mysterious green light of the primordial heavenly Tao's green eyes. As expected of the headless infant corpse who could fight head-on with the primeval Heaven's Eye back then, and although it was defeated, it did not completely perish.
It was definitely in existence on the same level as the primeval heaven's eye. Just this move alone was enough to prove this point. Unfortunately, after the warm current flowed out from the zombie lantern tattoo on his chest, there was no other reaction. Although Yi Xian was not exposed, even if the green light still shone on him, it did not affect him at all. It seemed to be the effect of the warm current flowing through his chest. As a result, it lasted. At least, this effect did not disappear in a short period of time. However, that was all. Yi Xian was still unable to move, imprisoned in this area of 1,000,000,000,000 miles that was enveloped by the green light. In front of him, the distance between the netherworld furnace and the primeval heavens' eye was only slightly more than 10 billion miles. For the terrifying existences of the primordial era and above, this distance was simply no different from being right next to them. In other words, Yi Xian was still not safe, and danger could still befall him at any time. Buzz! At this moment, within the primeval heaven's eye, a misty green light suddenly flashed, and an incomparably deep buzzing sound sounded, as if it was transmitting some kind of order. Whoosh!